Chapter 487. This place was the same as the snowy plains in front. He could not fly, he could only walk on foot. Sweat covered Xiao Chen's entire body. He felt dizzy and his vision blurred. The heat was unbearable. The blisters on Xiao Chen's feet had all burst, leaving only a layer of bloody skin. With every step Xiao Chen took, the bloody skin rubbed against Xiao Chen's shoes intensely. That kind of pain was even more torturous than being cut by a saber. It felt like thousands of ants were wriggling on Xiao Chen's feet. The world was like a huge furnace. Xiao Chen continued to walk alone. Even if he was in pain or tired, he did not stop. Xiao Chen calmly analyzed the situation in his heart. He was certain that this place tested one's willpower. It would not be too dangerous for him to die, but it would not let him walk in peace either. It would continuously whip him, grind him, and bring him inhuman pain. It wanted him to stop, to give up. As Xiao Chen walked, the blood in his shoes dripped on the ground. It made it look like he was leaving a trail of blood behind him. Xiao Chen was like a pilgrim, walking forward with the faith in his heart. Everyone only had one chance to enter the ancient desolate tower. Xiao Chen's fatal weakness was his low cultivation. Now that the opportunity was right before him, he could not leave any regrets. Ta! 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 After walking for an unknown amount of time, Xiao Chen lost all sense of time. Suddenly, a large door appeared in front of him. Xiao Chen pushed the door open numbly and looked forward. He saw a mountain filled with sabers. A large door stood quietly at the top of the mountain. Xiao Chen took heavy steps and entered. He smiled coldly and said, "A mountain of sabers, a sea of flames, a plain of absolute cold. I want to see what other inconceivable things there are that I cannot pass." Xiao Chen could not fly through the air on the mountain filled with sabers. He could only rely on the strength of his physical body to climb up the sabers. Xiao Chen's body, which was already in a sorry state, immediately became badly mutilated. It was a tragic sight, and the pain was unbearable. The test of this stage was very miraculous. No matter how it changed, there was only one thing that did not change. There would never be a situation where one would die. It would just continuously torture one, dampen one's spirit, and wear down one's willpower. As long as one did not stop, this torture would continue, forcing one to give up on the trial. After Xiao Chen crossed the Saber Mountain with much difficulty, he pushed open the door. Like before, what awaited him was not victory but a swamp filled with poisonous gas. Dragging his battered body, Xiao Chen relied on his strong willpower to continue on fearlessly. The poisonous gas spread out, rotting his body. Xiao Chen's body looked as if it were a snake. He fell. And he fell into the mud a few times. One step at a time, one footprint at a time. At this moment, Xiao Chen was already in a daze. He could not even distinguish the path under his feet. He fell into the mud a few times. It took a lot of effort to climb out, and then continued on his journey. Xiao Chen that as he go, Xiao Chen as before, he was as he could as he wanted. Xiao Chen's face. After all these dangers, Xiao Chen was already numb to them. He smiled bitterly and continued on his way. All sorts of dangers appeared continuously. Behind every door was an unimaginable danger. However, Xiao Chen passed through them all. This continued until the 9th door. After Xiao Chen pushed it open weakly, there was no danger waiting for him. A gentle light enveloped him. The holy white light was like immortal grade spirit liquid. It quickly healed Xiao Chen's wounds. All his fatigue was swept away, and his entire body felt indescribably comfortable. The sudden return of happiness after all the torture was intoxicating. He did not want to wake up for a long time. After the light faded, Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. After this ordeal, the strength of his physical body actually increased again. Looking at his new skin, Xiao Chen revealed a joyful expression. He said softly, "Not only did my strength increase, but my physical body's defense also increased." Unfortunately, I do not have a chance to test it now. When the clouds parted, the moon shone brightly. Xiao Chen's perseverance finally paid off. He did not mistreat Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen sized up his surroundings. This should be the 6th floor of the ancient desolate tower. There were statues that looked no different from real people in front of him. When he counted them, there were about 100 of them. When Xiao Chen's gaze landed on the first statue in the row at the very front, his expression suddenly froze. That statue wore white robes and a blue strip of cloth on its head. Its gaze was cold, and there was a calm expression on its face. Its arms were crossed, and an ancient saber was casually held in front of its chest. Who else could it be if not him? Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Xiao Chen continued looking forward. He did not recognize many of the statues. However, the few that he did recognize were all legendary experts of the various nations. As Xiao Chen looked further down, he even saw the statue of the Thunder King, Sang Mu, standing there quietly. Xiao Chen muttered, "It looks like the people who passed the test of will on the 6th floor will leave behind a statue here." However, I did not expect that after thousands of years, only 100 people managed to pass the 6th floor. Outside the ancient desolate tower, Shi Hailong and the others on the tall platform had excited expressions on their faces. This was because Xiao Chen had given them another pleasant surprise. He had cleared the 6th floor and was now heading to the 7th floor. Shi Hailong smiled happily and said, "After clearing the 6th floor, one can leave behind an ordinary will statue. That can be considered as carrying some of the ancient desolate tower's luck. This is the best reward for cultivators on this floor." He has already reached the 7th floor. As long as he goes up another floor, he will be able to reach the height of the Thunder King from 1,000 years ago. This fellow might really be able to create a legend. One of the Heavenly Extermination Union's elders said excitedly. When Shi Hailong heard this, his expression became much calmer. He smiled and said, "Don't overthink this. It is rare for someone like the Thunder King to appear in 10,000 years. In the end, Xiao Chen is still a distance away. If he can reach the 7th floor, it will be a great help to the Heavenly Extermination Union." The 7th floor, that is filled with the Wu statues left behind by Emperor Wu. How could Emperor Wu's test be so easy to clear? Shi Hailong sighed softly. He felt that it was unfortunate that Xiao Chen's cultivation was still too low. If he had another 2 years, he would definitely be stronger than Xiao Chen. If he had another 2 years, he would be a half-step martial monarch. With his combat talent, he would have a 70% chance of clearing Emperor Wu's test. However, he had come too early. His chances were still very slim. Dee-da. Dee-da. Xiao Chen's body passed through the mysterious light of the ancient desolate tower. Drops of pure essence fell continuously from the purple chi whirlpool, which had already expanded by half. This lasted for 3 minutes. In these 3 minutes, Xiao Chen's cultivation had increased by half a year, stabilizing his cultivation as a medial grade martial king. Xiao Chen landed firmly on the ground and appeared on the 7th floor of the ancient desolate tower. He could feel the vast energy in his body. Xiao Chen revealed a satisfied smile. It was worth the price he paid to climb up to the 7th floor. Just the increase in his cultivation from the 7th floor's light brought him boundless benefits. He had closed the gap between him and the genius cultivators of the same generation. I will go up and try to reach peak medial grade martial king. I only have one chance to come to this ancient desolate tower. I cannot waste it. Xiao Chen said resolutely in his heart. He wanted to see the scenery of the 8th floor. Back then, the Thunder King could reach the 8th floor. Xiao Chen could do the same. Xiao Chen looked around the 7th floor. Then, 10 human-sized statues appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. These statues were different from the statues on the 6th floor. With a cursory glance, Xiao Chen could feel the boundless aura contained in these statues. These statues were also different from the martial sage statues on the 2nd floor. The aura and bearing of these statues were far superior to the Wu statues of martial sages. As Xiao Chen stood before the statues, it was like the statues in front of him were real people. It was as if the people in front of them were real people. Their gazes were deep and distant, and they didn't dare to look at them directly. Xiao Chen thought for a while and said softly, "They should be Wu statues as well." However, Wu statues are divided into different grades. The statues on the 6th floor are the most ordinary Wu statues. The ones on the 2nd floor are the sage statues left by martial sages. The ones on the 7th floor are probably martial emperors. When Xiao Chen thought of this possibility, he could not help but feel a deep sense of respect when he looked at the statues again. Emperor, the pinnacle of martial cultivation, the peak of the great Tao. This was what all cultivators pursued their entire lives. It represented glory, represented the peak, and most importantly, represented strength. Every Emperor Wu was a legend. In the Tianwu continent for thousands of years, there had not been any news of anyone stepping into the realm of Emperor Wu. The legends of Emperor Wu were left behind by the older generation sages. However, the older generation Emperor Wu had already vanished from the Tianwu continent. After the Thunder King fell 1,000 years ago, there had been no more news of an emperor appearing. It was like all the martial emperors had disappeared. Now that Xiao Chen personally saw the Wu statues left by Emperor Wu, the fluctuations in Xiao Chen's heart could be easily imagined. As Xiao Chen carefully sized up the Wu statues, he suddenly gasped. His gaze stopped on the 4th statue from the left. Bai Shuihe. This statue wore blue battle armor and carried a dragon-tooth saber on its back. It looked exactly the same as Bai Shuihe on the 2nd floor. The only difference was that the pressure it gave Xiao Chen was on a completely different level. Xiao Chen's attitude toward Bai Shuihe could not help but rise to another level. The will of Bai Shuihe on the 2nd floor was like a great teacher. Rather than calling it a test, it was more like a senior bladesman giving pointers to his juniors. As they chatted, Xiao Chen benefited a lot. Unexpectedly, he saw Bai Shuihe's statue again on this floor. Such a heroic person with such a breadth of mind was able to reach the level of Emperor Wu. Xiao Chen felt gratified as well. He quickly stepped forward and pointed at the other party's forehead. "Brat, choose me. How is this by face attractive? I will show you what a true bladesman is." Just as Xiao Chen's finger was about to tap the statue's forehead, the thunderous voice of the first statue from the right, a man holding a thick saber, rang out. "Ha! Old Lei, don't be envious. With your looks, no one will choose you. Ha ha ha." Chapter 488. Bai Shuihe, who was in front of Xiao Chen, seemed to come to life. He laughed loudly and pointed at Xiao Chen's forehead at lightning speed. Boom! Boom! The surroundings shook and Xiao Chen's vision turned blurry for a moment. After a while, he found himself in a chaotic space. With his previous experience, Xiao Chen was not too surprised. He performed a cup fist salute and said, "This junior Xiao Chen greets senior again." Bai Shuihe raised his eyebrows and a formless light flashed in his eyes. It was like he could see through everything about Xiao Chen, there were no secrets at all. "No wonder you chose me. It turns out that you already shattered my Wu statue on the 2nd floor. Why do you want to shatter my Wu statue on this floor as well?" Bai Shuihe said calmly as he looked at Xiao Chen with a smile that did not seem like a smile. Xiao Chen said somewhat embarrassedly, "How could that be? I just wanted to ask senior for guidance. I hope that I can pass the test of this floor." Bai Shuihe said somewhat angrily, "Young man, don't be so humble. You can be more confident. Since you can shatter my sage statue, you might be able to shatter my emperor statue. You don't even have this much confidence and you still want to go to the 8th floor. The 8th floor is filled with the Wu statues of king-grade martial emperors. I'll ask you one more time whether you are confident or not." Bai Shuihe's tone suddenly turned heavier. He shouted his last sentence, causing Xiao Chen to feel an inexplicable pressure in his heart. Xiao Chen nearly blurted out the words. However, when the words reached his mouth, he suddenly realized it and was startled. The other party was the bona fide saber Emperor Wu. Shao Chen was just an insignificant martial king. If he said he was confident he could shatter the other party's statue, he would be overestimating himself. Shao Chen stopped speaking and said softly, "Senior, you must be joking. A few moves would suffice. Why would this junior think of shattering your statue?" Seeing that Shao Chen did not fall for his trap, the interest in Bai Shuihe's eyes intensified. He smiled and said, "That's right. If you had really said that there were words, the number of moves you could exchange with me would have increased from 10 to 20. Shao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't say the word, yes. Comparing 20 moves to 10 moves, it was twice as long. However, on account of the fact that you've shattered my saint statue, I've decided to give you 20 pointers. Bai Shuihe changed the topic and smiled slyly. Shao Chen felt depressed in his heart. It turned out that Shao Chen was toying with him. His image of a martial emperor in his heart immediately fell to rock bottom. Who would have thought that Emperor Wu would have this kind of bad taste, toying with a junior? Bai Shuihe frowned and said, "What's wrong? You look very happy. Add another 10 moves." Shao Chen's expression immediately became conflicted. He hurriedly said, "How am I happy? It's nothing." Bai Shuihe nodded and said, "I, the great Emperor Wu, am here to give you pointers, yet you are still angry. Brat, you don't know what's good for you. Add another 10 moves." Shao Chen was utterly speechless. He did not say anything more. This Bai Shuihe's character before and after he became a martial emperor was too different. When Bai Shuihe saw Shao Chen's conflicted expression, he laughed loudly again. His face was filled with joy as he said, "Brat, I was just fooling you. The test of this stage is not about exchanging a few moves." "Then what is the test of this stage?" Shao Chen asked doubtfully. "There is a huge gap between Emperor Wu and a martial sage. As a bladesman, you choose me. 10 moves, 20 moves, or 1 move, there is no difference." Bai Shuihe withdrew his smile and said seriously, "You only need to receive 1 saber strike from me. If you do not die, you will pass. Do you dare?" "Do I dare to receive Emperor Wu's saber strike?" Emperor Wu's saber strike. Shao Chen's heart skipped a beat. He quickly thought about it. Although it was said to be Emperor Wu's saber strike, the other party would definitely not use a cultivation that surpassed Shao Chen's own. Otherwise, he would not even need to use 1 saber strike. With just a glance, the other party could use the natural laws to kill Shao Chen. Then, there would be no need to talk about the test. However, this saber strike would definitely not be easy to receive. This was especially so when the other party said very clearly that he would pass if he did not die. What did he mean? Did he mean that Shao Chen would not be able to break this saber strike? At most, it would just be a matter of injury. Naturally, Shao Chen did not doubt the words of the peak Emperor Wu. However, he still asked uncertainly, "What if I die?" When Bai Shuihe heard that, he could not help but laugh loudly. "What else can I do if I die? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Naturally, everything will be over. So, think carefully before you make your decision. Don't ever think that giving up is a very embarrassing thing. The strength of my saber strike will not surpass your cultivation. However, the difference between us is not as simple as cultivation. 1 saber strike, just 1 saber strike. As long as he passed this saber strike, he would be able to reach the 8th floor. However, this saber strike would really kill him. Once he agreed, there would be no more chances to give up. He would have to face death. Shao Chen could not help but hesitate. At the juncture of life and death, no matter who faced such a situation, they would hesitate. This was especially so when the other party was a bona fide Emperor Wu. If someone really agreed without thinking about anything, that person might really not be far from death. Back then, the Thunder King was only 21 years old. His cultivation was slightly higher than mine. What did he think when faced with such a situation? Xiao Chen could not help but look at the lunar shadow saber in his hand. If Ao Jiao were here, given her experience, she would be able to give him an answer very quickly. At this moment, Xiao Chen could not help but reminisce about Ao Jiao. Back then, she accompanied the Thunder King all the way to the 8th floor, which no one had reached in 10,000 years. Her understanding of this ancient desolate tower was much clearer than Xiao Chen's. Should I accept this saber strike or not? Xiao Chen hesitated for the first time in his heart. Idiot, why do you not dare to accept it? It is fine as long as you do not die. Why are you so afraid? Suddenly, a melodious voice rang out in Xiao Chen's mind. He immediately rejoiced and said, Ao Jiao, when did you wake up? Within the lunar shadow saber, Ao Jiao habitually mocked, stop speaking nonsense. I took some time out of my busy schedule to give a piece of trash like you some pointers. Stop saying meaningless words. Just agree to him directly. He is just a minor heavenly Emperor Wu and he dares to put on airs to scare people. Xiao Chen blushed with shame in his heart. Regardless of what Emperor Wu is, he is still Emperor Wu. You look down on him, but he can destroy me with just a finger. Bai Shuehe, who was in front, saw the strange expression on Xiao Chen's face. A look of doubt flashed in his eyes. After a while, he said, you who are hiding, come out. Xiao Chen stretched out his right hand and the lunar shadow saber in his hand started to tremble uncontrollably. It seemed like the lunar shadow saber would be drawn at any moment. Boom! Xiao Chen did his best but it was to no avail. There was a melodious sound and Ao Jiao's image was pulled out. When Bai Shuehe saw Ao Jiao's appearance, his expression relaxed. He smiled and said, I was wondering why this fellow looked so familiar. So, you are the inheritor of Sangmu. Little Ao Jiao, after not seeing you for a few thousand years, you dare to look down on me, a minor heavenly senior. You are ambitious, ambitious. However, Ao Jiao's expression was very unhappy. She looked at Bai Shuehe and said gloomily, you have wasted a year's worth of hard work. Later, I will have to swallow up the sword spirit again. Bai Shuehe smiled calmly and said, you have to pay a price for speaking ill of others behind their backs. Xiao Chen suddenly understood. Unexpectedly, the target of the Thunder King's challenge 3,000 years ago was Bai Shuehe as well. However, 3,000 years later, although the process was different, Xiao Chen was still stuck in Bai Shuehe's hands at the final hurdle. Bai Shuehe returned to Xiao Chen's side and said, now, there is no one to disturb you. You can decide for yourself. Receive a saber strike from me. Do you dare or not? The instant Ao Jiao appeared, Xiao Chen had already made up his mind. When Bai Shuehe asked him again, Xiao Chen did not hesitate to nod and say, I dare. Bai Shuehe smiled gently and did not say anything more. He placed his right hand on the saber hilt on his back. His gaze was like 10,000 sabers piercing towards Xiao Chen, it was extremely sharp. Ka-xie. Xiao Chen did not think too much about it. He immediately drew the lunar shadow saber and held it horizontally in front of his chest. He stared at Bai Shuehe's right hand, which was holding the saber hilt. The nervousness that Xiao Chen expected did not appear. In the instant before the battle, all of Xiao Chen's hesitation were tossed aside. His state of mind was incomparably calm. When Ao Jiao saw this scene, her bright eyes narrowed into a crescent moon shape. She revealed a faint smile on her face. A person who can draw the thunderwood sword is definitely not trash, Ao Jiao thought to herself. Xiao. Bai Shuehe's attack did not make Xiao Chen wait for long. When he said he would use one attack, it was one attack. He did not use his aura to pressure Xiao Chen, nor did he use his mental energy to destroy Xiao Chen's state of mind. This attack was just an ordinary chop, there was nothing fancy about it. Bai Shuehe leaped into the air and chopped down with a saber light. It was so simple that Xiao Chen found it inconceivable. This move is full of openings. I can break it with just a casual attack. Emperor Wu's attack is too laughable. That's not right. If it was so simple, why would there be a dead person? There must be some secret that I do not know. Let's continue watching. Xiao Chen's thoughts raced like lightning. After he analyzed everything, he discovered some tricks. The other party is wide open. As long as I stab his heart, I can force him to withdraw his saber and defend. However, he is holding his saber with one hand. The angle of his grip is at a 90-degree angle to his chest. When I attack his chest, the tip of the saber will turn. Given the length of his dragon-tooth saber, he will definitely be able to injure me first. When he flies, he is only 1.5 body lengths higher than me. His feet are spread apart, and he can change direction at any time. No matter where I retreat to, I will not be able to dodge. The direction of his attack looks like it is from above. However, the angle of his body is 30 degrees forward. Actually, this attack can also be seen as coming from below. The more Xiao Chen analyzed, the more tricks he found. The other party's attack seemed to have considered all the problems that could be considered. It was simple and unadorned. This was probably the principle behind the Great Tao being the simplest. When Bai Shuehe was only a martial sage, the four-season saber technique was ever-changing. The various states and mysterious phenomena dazzled the eyes. However, at the crucial moment, Xiao Chen could always think of a way to break it and even counterattack. However, now that the other party was at Emperor Wu's level, this simple attack gave one the feeling that it was unbreakable and unblockable. No wonder Xiao Chen said earlier that at his level, there was no difference between one attack and 10 attacks. This attack contained more than 10 kinds of saber techniques. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it contained thousands of saber techniques. I can't use the roaming dragon's 9 transformations. He can see through my true body with one glance. If he attacks from above, he can chop me in half. Chapter 489. The Wukue blossoms will not work either. The instant the flower buds combine, the saber light will reach my neck. The lightning evasion will take too long to execute. That will not work either. Thousands of thoughts flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. In an instant, faster than the blink of an eye, he thought of all the methods he could use to deal with this. However, he rejected all of them, none of them worked. Idiot, as long as I do not die, why would I not dare to receive it? When the saber light was 1 meter away from Xiao Chen remembered Ao Jiao's words. He suddenly felt enlightened and heaved a sigh of relief. I am really an idiot. There is no way I can dodge this saber strike, nor can I break it. Bai Shuehe had already made it clear long ago. As long as I do not die, it will be fine. In the end, before the battle, my thoughts were still the same as before, thinking about how to break it and how to dodge it. Xiao Chen did not know that he could not dodge this saber strike. He did not need to try to break it, he only needed to survive. However, it was not that easy to survive. If Xiao Chen tried to get lucky, he might end up dying even faster. However, this gave Xiao Chen a direction. Xiao. At the last moment, Xiao Chen did not advance. Instead, he retreated. He raised his saber and swung it at the opening in his opponent's chest. Bai Shuehe smiled faintly and thought to himself, I already told you to survive. Yet, you overestimate yourself and want to injure me. In that case, I can only send you on your way. Bai Shuehe turned his wrist unhurriedly and the saber moved downwards naturally, heading for Xiao Chen's neck. He did not even see Xiao Chen's attack. It is as I expected. This is not an opening. He does not even care about it. However, this is what I wanted. The throat is a vital point. If a regular cultivator gets hit by a saber strike, they will die. Naturally, Xiao Chen was no exception. Since he wanted to survive, he had to know which vital point his opponent was attacking. Once he confirmed it, it would be easy to deal with it. Xiao Chen let go of the lunar shadow saber and let it fall to the ground. He opened his right hand and smashed it against his opponent's saber. Puchi. The blade, which was only a centimeter away from his throat, was immediately pressed down by 3 centimeters. The saber radiance cut open a horrifying wound on his chest. It was so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood immediately spurted out. When the saber light entered his body, it stirred up his internal organs. Xiaochen felt something sweet in his throat, and he could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. His face was terrifyingly pale, but Xiaochen's lips curled into a smile. He said, "Senior, this strike multiplied the power of the blade to its peak. It is worthy of being Emperor Wu's blade strike. But in the end, I did not die." The expression on Bai Shuihe's face was slightly startled. The tip of his blade had clearly been a centimeter away from Xiaochen's throat, but at the last moment, his opponent had forcibly pressed it down. "Look, that dot of light is going up again. Xiaochen has reached the 8th floor." The few elders who had been paying attention to Xiaochen said excitedly. The higher Xiaochen climbed, the more luck the Heavenly Extermination Union would obtain. Naturally, the benefits they would receive would be greater as well. Shi Hailong rubbed his eyes hard. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, even though he had full confidence in Xiaochen. Who would have thought that he would really be able to pass the test of the 7th floor and reach the 8th floor? Even the Thunder King back then was no more than this. He really made it to the 8th floor. Incredible. Back then, when the Thunder King reached the 8th floor, he was already 21 years old. I heard that this Xiaochen is not even 20 years old. From this point of view, has Xiaochen already surpassed the Thunder King? He, what did I say? What did I say? I said long ago when he jumped over the first level that Xiaochen would definitely surpass the Thunder King. But you didn't believe me. Now you're dumbfounded, aren't you? Up on the high platform, the old man who made the prediction about Xiaochen was the most excited. The few people at the side said disdainfully, "Old Ma, you were not so sure at that time. Now you only know how to be cocky." Shi Hailong withdrew his smile and nodded gently. "Old Ma, make your preparations. Bring my words over. You can take down Li Shuzhu now." When the old man with the family name Ma heard this, he immediately said respectfully, "Elder Shi, rest assured. Leave it to me. That old man with the family name Li will definitely not be able to escape." Everyone could predict that after this experiential training, Shi Hailong's position in the Heavenly Extermination Union would definitely rise. This was a good opportunity to curry favor with Shi Hailong. The few elders at the side looked at Elder Ma, who had left to carry out his orders. They revealed envious gazes. This was a good job. "Elder Shi, do you have any instructions for us to carry out?" The few of them asked with smiles. Shi Hailong paused for a while before smiling. "It's fine. Just continue watching. This time, we managed to dig out a person like Xiaochen because of everyone's hard work. I will make things clear to the 5 lords." The 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower was empty except for an ancient copper door in the center. It was unknown where the door led to. The copper door was tightly shut. Mysterious talisman scripts were embroidered on the door, giving off a faint spiritual light. Xiaochen passed through the light of the 7th floor. Purple essence liquid dripped down for 10 minutes before stopping. When Xiaochen landed, his cultivation had stabilized at peak medial grade Martial King. He could not help but reveal a wide smile. On this trip to the ancient desolate tower, he had finally closed the gap in his cultivation that he sought. When Xiaochen's gaze fell on the copper door, he thought for a while before going over to take a look. Ao Jiao, who had followed Xiaochen over, said, "Wait for a while. Recover from your injuries first. At the same time, try to comprehend Bai Shuihe's earlier saber strike. That saber strike contained all sorts of saber techniques. As long as you can comprehend a little, no one in the same generation will be able to block it." Xiaochen stopped and thought about it. Bai Shuihe's move was definitely at the peak of the saber technique. Since there was not much time left, Xiaochen should try to comprehend as much as he could. Xiaochen sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to meditate. A purple chi whirlpool spun, and a vast amount of essence nourished the wound on his chest. As Ao Jiao looked at the ancient copper door on the 8th floor, her expression became somewhat complicated. In the end, she sighed gently, feeling melancholic. After a while, Xiaochen opened his eyes and looked at Ao Jiao. He said, Ao Jiao, do you know what is behind the door? Ao Jiao thought for a long time before saying, Xiaochen, let's stop here. Don't go up. Xiaochen nodded and said, all right, then I won't go up. When Ao Jiao saw that Xiaochen answered so straightforwardly, she asked, you are not going to ask why? Xiaochen smiled and said, why ask? If you want to tell me, you will naturally tell me. If you don't, it is pointless for me to ask. I just need to remember that you will not harm me. If you say no, then I won't go up. Ao Jiao felt warmth in her heart. She had not expected Xiaochen to resist the temptation of the 9th floor so firmly, choosing to trust her. It is as you said. I will not harm you. You should have gained a lot from being able to reach the 8th floor. Xiaochen did not dwell on this matter anymore. Instead, he asked about something he was more concerned about. He asked, earlier, you said that you were going to swallow the weapon spirit again. What's going on? When Ao Jiao heard this, she felt somewhat vexed. She said, I still underestimated the skills of the Haotian sect. The weapon spirit in the lunar shadow saber was much stronger than I expected. Even after I swallowed it, it refused to merge with me. As a result, my progress in nourishing the divine weapon was extremely slow. Now, that person with the surname Bai pulled me out. That weapon spirit has broken free from my control again. I have to start over. However, don't worry. In the end, I am still in control. When Xiaochen heard this, he relaxed. The two of them had not seen each other for a long time, so they started chatting on the 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower. When Ao Jiao arrived at the ancient desolate tower, she seemed to be in a good mood. She told Xiaochen about the Thunder King's experiences in the past. In just 3 years, you went from a cultivator to where you are today. It is really hard to imagine. Ao Jiao looked at the current Xiaochen and thought about the Xiaochen from 3 years ago. Then, she looked at the current him and sighed. Before Xiaochen could feel proud, Ao Jiao mocked him, however, you are still too weak. You cannot even defeat your own weapon spirit. Do your best, trashy master. Smiling gently, Ao Jiao turned into a beam of white light and returned to the lunar shadow saber. Xiaochen shook his head and smiled bitterly. He glanced at the bronze doors and no longer lingered. Xiaochen took out the jade pendant on his chest and gently crushed it. The instant the jade pendant shattered, Xiaochen was immediately knocked out. Xiao. In the air, Xiaochen, dressed in white with a blue strip of cloth on his forehead, slowly floated down. Shi Hailong had a wide smile on his face as he jumped off the tall platform. He led a group of elders to part the crowd and walked towards Xiaochen with a smile. Xiaochen, you have indeed not disappointed me. Since the Heavenly Extermination Union opened the trial of the ancient desolate tower, you are the second person to reach the 8th floor. Xiaochen said politely, many thanks to Elder Shi and the Heavenly Extermination Union for giving me this opportunity. As Xiaochen spoke, Xia Xiyan, Zuemo, Jiang Zimo, and the others all came over to congratulate Xiaochen. Xiaochen performed cup fist salutes in return. At this moment, Shi Hailong appeared to be in high spirits, even more pleased than Xiaochen. He gathered everyone together and said, I hereby announce that this trial of the ancient desolate tower has come to an end. I hope that everyone will not disappoint us 2 years from now and achieve even better results in the 5-nation youth competition. A bunch of trash. Do you really think that you are not trash after passing the ancient desolate tower? Xiaochen, scram out here. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Just at this moment, a discordant voice rang out. Everyone looked up and saw Xie Ziwen and his master breaking through the Heavenly Extermination Union's blockade and forcefully arriving before the crowd. Shi Hailong's face sank. He looked at the old man behind Xie and said, Gong Haoyu, no matter how much your evil moon pavilion calls the shots in the great Jin nation, don't forget that this is the ancient desolate land. The Heavenly Extermination Union has the final say here. Shi Hailong was extremely frustrated. Xiao Qin had just broken through to the 8th floor. This was a rare event that happened only once in 1,000 years. Unexpectedly, the two people that he did not want to see the most appeared before him. Gong Haoyu said coldly, I am not here today to cause trouble. It is just a conflict between the younger generation. Don't use the Heavenly Extermination Union to pressure me. Even if your union chief is here, I will still be in the right. Shi Hailong frowned slightly and asked, what are you trying to do? Gong Haoyu looked coldly at Xiao Qin and said, this brat caused my evil moon pavilion to lose the chance to compete for the ancient desolate tower. No matter what, I have to give him an explanation today. Xie Ziwen looked at Xiao Qin, who stood tall in the crowd. Hatred filled his eyes. If he had not been careless and lost to Xiao Qin, he would be the one enjoying such treatment now. Xiao Qin, do you dare to fight me again? Xie Ziwen shouted expressionlessly. Chapter 490. When Shi Hailong heard this, he was stunned. He immediately sent a voice projection to Xiao Qin, don't fall for his provocation. Your strength is about the same. He clearly knows that you became much stronger after entering the ancient desolate tower, yet he still challenged you. He must have some secret technique to increase his strength temporarily. The most important thing is that you just came out of the ancient desolate tower. You are blessed with great luck. If you lose, he will snatch away all the luck you accumulated in the ancient desolate tower. Don't fall for his provocation. In the future, when you grow stronger, you will be able to destroy him with just a flick of your finger. Shi Hailong's tone was very anxious. He said a lot in one breath, listing the pros and cons. He did his best to dissuade Xiao Qin from accepting the other party's challenge. However, Shi Hailong had no choice but to be cautious. If Xiao Qin lost, the Heavenly Extermination Union's luck would be damaged. If that happened, all his efforts would go to waste. The others, Xia Xian and Jiang Zimo, also advised, Xiao Qin, don't accept him. This fellow definitely came prepared. He is just waiting for you to jump in. When Xie Ziwen saw the silent Xiao Qin, he mocked, that is all the courage you have. To think that you dare to compete with the Thunder Emperor. Xiao Qin, you disappoint me. Xiao Qin took 2 steps forward and carefully sized up Xie Ziwen. Then, he said, as you wish. Get on the arena. Xie Ziwen laughed loudly and floated to the largest arena in the Tianwu Plaza. He put on an expression as though he already had Xiao Qin in the bag. He said, good, I was waiting for you to say that. When Shi Hailong heard this, he said anxiously, Xiao Qin, don't be rash. Xiao Qin waved his hand and said, Senior Shi, don't worry. I know what to do. Shi Hailong shook his head and sighed, not saying anything more. Xiao Qin's battle was very important. He wanted to stop Xiao Qin, but he could not do anything about it since Xiao Qin insisted on fighting. The trial of the ancient desolate tower was a major event in the entire ancient desolate land. Countless people had already gathered outside the Tianwu Plaza. However, the people of the Heavenly Extermination Union kept them outside. Now that the trial was over, in addition to the Evil Moon Pavilion's interference, the order of the place became chaotic. Crowds of martial artists swarmed into the plaza. Xiao Qin stomped hard on the ground and his figure flashed, landing on the arena in an instant. Is that person in white the one who reached the 8th level this year? Why is he only a medial grade martial king? Are you sure? That should be right. I saw him floating out from the outside. Cultivation is not the only thing that determines a cultivator. However, this Xie Ziwen is really vicious. The other party just came out of the ancient desolate tower. If he defeats this person, he will snatch away all of this person's luck. If he didn't have the confidence, he would never dare to challenge Xiao Chen at this time. This is going to be interesting. The crowd below discussed with each other. Some of the more discerning cultivators guessed Xie Ziwen's purpose in challenging Xiao Chen. The sun hung high in the sky, and the sunlight shone down. Up in the arena, Xie Ziwen looked at Xiao Chen and smiled coldly. You really dare to come up? Those who hurt my, Xie Ziwen's, people have never had a good ending. I, Xie Ziwen, will be taking your luck today. Xiao. Right after Xie Ziwen spoke, he brought out his state of fire to its limits. This time, he would not be careless, he would not hold anything back. Xiao Chen sent out a palm strike, and a fierce sea of fire spread around him. It rose and fell like waves, layering over each other. The heat wave spread into the surroundings, and the temperature instantly soared. Shi Hailong's expression changed. He said, "This fellow indeed came prepared. He has comprehended his state of fire to its limits." Ka Xie. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He placed his right hand on the hilt of the lunar shadow saber and drew it at lightning speed. Boom! Boom! Thunder roared as Xiao Chen leaped into the air. A purple saber light appeared, and he hacked down. This was the saber strike that Emperor Wu Bai Shuehe executed back then. As Xie Ziwen flew, he saw Xiao Chen's saber strike. A disdainful smile appeared on his face. You are full of openings, and you are not embarrassed to call yourself the white-robed bladesman. Get down here. Boom! A sea of fire surged around Xie Ziwen's body, and his palm gave off a bright red light. A huge flame rippled and formed a jade-like palm. As the flames surged, a huge flaming palm formed and pressed towards Xiao Chen's open chest. Xiao Chen recalled the charm of Bai Shuehe's saber strike. He tilted his body slightly, and the huge flaming palm brushed past his shoulder. Xiao Chen twisted his wrist, and the saber moved from top to bottom, naturally thrusting forward. Pu Ci. Xiao Chen landed on the ground, and the tip of his saber stabbed in by 1 centimeter. It happened to be stuck in Xie Ziwen's chest, and blood immediately spurted out. Everything was going according to plan, there were no deviations. Xiao Chen looked at Xie Ziwen calmly and said, "You have lost." The disdainful smile on Xie Ziwen's face did not even have time to disappear. Just as he sent out a palm strike, Xiao Chen stabbed into his chest, a vital spot. As long as Xiao Chen used a little more force, Xie Ziwen would die. What's going on? How did I lose? That move was clearly full of openings. At most, the saber light was a little strange. How did he manage to stab me? Xie Ziwen showed a stunned expression. He could not understand what was going on no matter how he thought about it. Xie Ziwen was not the only one who could not understand. The thousands of cultivators watching felt it was strange as well. Only one move, and Xiao Chen actually defeated Xie Ziwen. Everyone still remembered the fight between Xiao Chen and Xie Ziwen 7 days ago. Xie Ziwen had only managed to defeat Xiao Chen after 100 moves because of his carelessness. However, 7 days later, Xiao Chen used only 1 move to defeat Xie Ziwen. The entire place fell silent. Everyone stared at Xiao Chen in shock. Zuo revealed a contemplative expression. He said indifferently, "That saber strike has its own uses." Ding Fengqiu said softly, "I can only tell now. It seems to be full of openings, but in reality, there are no openings at all. However, there are still some flaws in the transitions, as it is a move that he just learned." Jiang Zimo said with some envy, "I really wonder what benefits he obtained in the upper floors for him to have such strength." Shi Hailong was slightly stunned before he reacted. He smiled and said, "No wonder this fellow is so confident. I was overthinking things. I did not lose. It is impossible for me to lose." Suddenly, something strange happened. Xie Ziwen grabbed Xiao Chen's saber and retreated at lightning speed. Then, he took out a medicinal pill and popped it into his mouth. Boom! The medicinal pill melted in his mouth, and Xie Zhiwen's aura suddenly soared. His clothes and hair fluttered without any wind, and a strong wind howled behind him. Bang! Xie Zhiwen ignored the injury on his chest and sent out another palm strike. A huge flaming palm the size of a small mountain pressed towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. Unexpectedly, he felt a dangerous aura from this huge flaming palm. Xiao Chen did not block blindly. He pushed off the ground and retreated. Pa! As the giant flaming palm fell, a deep pit formed by the palm print immediately appeared on the arena. Countless stone slabs exploded and shot in all directions. Shi Hailong said sullenly, "Half-step martial monarch. What kind of medicinal pill is that? How did Xie Zhiwen become a half-step martial monarch in such a short time?" The situation suddenly changed. Xie Zhiwen, who had consumed a mysterious medicinal pill, suddenly became a half-step martial monarch. When Xie Zhiwen waved his palm, a berserk essence poured out. He launched a chain of attacks without pause, beating down on Xiao Chen until he could not retaliate. Bang! 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 Explosions rang out incessantly. Under Xie Zhiwen's berserk attacks, the sturdy arena shattered, turning it into rubble. He is very strong. However, he forcefully advanced to half-step martial monarch. His aura is not stable. While his energy looks berserk, it is not very condensed. Let's wait for a while, Xiao Chen analyzed calmly. Then, his figure flashed and flew towards another arena. Hu Qi! Xie Zhiwen quickly followed, not letting up. The two's figures flashed and flew to another arena. Xie Zhiwen laughed and said, "Xiao Chen, aren't you very powerful? Why aren't you attacking? Let's see where you can run to." 1,000 flaming palms. Xie Zhiwen took a deep breath and released a resplendent red light from his right palm. It was as bright as day, like a small sun. Boom! Xie Zhiwen spat out a mouthful of turbid qi and shouted. Then, he sent out a palm as bright as the sun. Suddenly, a flaming palm shot out like a meteor shower at Xiao Chen. With such a large area of effect attack, there was no chance for Xiao Chen to dodge. Xiao Chen raised his head and looked at the flaming rain falling from the sky. He muttered, "It is time to end this. A half-step martial monarch is only a so-so." The purple qi whirlpool in Xiao Chen's body spun quickly. A surging, pure lightning-attributed essence circulated in his meridians and poured into his saber. Xiao Chen condensed the surging energy to its limits and infused it into his saber, not letting any of it leak out. The pitch-black saber immediately flickered with a purple light. It looked very simple and plain. It was a stark contrast to Xie Zhiwen's berserk energy. Break! Xiao Chen's expression suddenly turned grave. He shouted and swung his saber forward. The flaming palms flying at him immediately shattered into countless sparks. Break! 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 Facing the raining flaming palms, Xiao Chen did not move at all. It was like his feet were rooted to the ground as he stabbed his saber at the flaming palms flying at him. Without exception, all the flaming palms that Xiao Chen stabbed shattered into countless sparks and disappeared into the air. Xiao Chen seemed relaxed and did not feel any pressure. It was like the flaming palms were not filled with berserk essence attacks but just tiles. Bang! 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 When the other flaming palms landed on the ground, they blasted the arena into smithereens. Dust filled the air and flew everywhere. This made it clear that while these flaming palms looked small and messy, their might was not weak at all. They were definitely not tiles. However, the white-robed bladesman with a calm expression easily shattered the flaming palms flying at him amid the flaming light filling the sky. Such a huge contrast was hard to believe. Were these flaming palms really that strong? It was somewhat contradictory. When Shi Hailong saw this scene, he heaved a sigh of relief. Given this, Xiao Chen had at least a 50% chance of victory. Xie Zhiwen's chest tightened. He had consumed the rank 7 blood essence pill, which could raise his cultivation by 50% for the time it takes for a joss stick to burn. Chapter 491. The so-called half-step martial monarch referred to cultivating essence to the limit of a martial king. Comprehending states to the limit of a martial king. Cultivating cultivation techniques to the limit of a martial king. Cultivating martial techniques to the limit of a martial king. After reaching the limit in all aspects, there would be a qualitative change. There would be a huge difference from a martial king. After that, once one's mental energy cultivation reached a certain level, they would be able to successfully advance to martial monarch. Xie Zhiwen's talent was outstanding. His comprehension of states, cultivation techniques, and martial techniques could be said to have reached the limit of a martial king. Only his cultivation was slightly weaker. However, after Xie Zhiwen consumed the blood essence pill, he made up for this difference. Within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, he could be considered a true half-step martial monarch. Xie Zhiwen had not expected Xiao Chen to be able to break his attack so easily. He did not feel any pressure at all. Aside from the 1-meter radius of Xiao Chen's feet, the arena was already in tatters. The rest of the arena was already filled with holes, it was a complete mess. 1,000 flaming flames, gather! Xie Zhiwen shouted, and the countless flaming palms in the air merged together. They formed an incredibly huge flaming palm with clear lines and a beautiful luster. The palm was like a tall wall. It fell down at an incredible speed. Its shadow instantly covered Xiao Chen. I don't believe that I cannot suppress you to death. Xie Zhiwen formed hand seals continuously. A sea of fire surged around him. The might of the descending flaming palm continued to increase. Boom! A bolt of purple lightning, like a spear, pierced through his palm and shot out. At the end of the lightning. At the end of the electric light was an ethereal figure holding a long saber. He was dressed in white with a blue bandana on his head. He had a delicate face and a delicate face. Bang! His palm landed solidly on the ground. Without any pause, the arena silently sank more than 10 meters into the ground. The might of the palm was so great that it flabbergasted everyone. The surrounding crowd found it hard to imagine how the white figure in the air managed to break the palm with just one saber strike. Xiao! Xiao Chen pointed his saber at the sky. The sharpness in his heart that had never faded surged out from his saber and into the clouds. Dang! 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 The 6-foot-long saber trembled continuously as an extremely sharp saber intent spread throughout the entire Tianwu Plaza. Among the thousands of spectating cultivators, the weapons of some bladesmen could not help but shake intensely, as if they would fall out of their hands at any moment. When Jiang Zimo, Zuemo, Ding Fengqiu, and the other cultivators of the same generation as Xiao Chen saw this scene, they exchanged glances with each other with strange expressions. After a while, Zuemo said with some uncertainty, "It should be saber intent." Ding Fengqiu, you say it. You are a swordsman and have comprehended sword intent. You have more say than us. As Ding Fengqiu looked at the white figure in the sky, he felt very bitter in his heart. From today onwards, he, Ding Fengqiu, would have to look at this person forever. Ding Fengqiu sighed softly and nodded heavily, stop guessing. That is saber intent. Actually, I should have thought of it long ago. After he cleared the hurdle of desire, his mental state reached consummation. It is only natural for the qi in his heart to turn into saber intent. Although Ding Fengqiu said that, he had not expected Xiao Chen to comprehend saber intent so early. Based on his estimations, Xiao Chen would need at least 2 years to comprehend saber intent. When the others received Ding Fengqiu's confirmation, they all remained silent. Saber intent was different from sword intent, it was harder to comprehend. If one could comprehend saber intent before the age of 30, one could become a powerful bladesman. Xiao Chen had comprehended saber intent before the age of 20. He was already comparable to the ancient geniuses of the saber Dao. The gap between them had widened once again. Shi Hailong's mouth gaped open for a long time before he closed it again. All the worry on his aged face vanished like smoke. He beamed with joy and said, "Ha ha ha. Gong Haoyu, you are seeking your own humiliation this time. Let's see how you are going to account to your pavilion master when you return." Xie Ziwen's second martial uncle, Gong Haoyu, had a sullen expression. He struggled to say, "Don't laugh too early. It is just saber intent. It is not sufficient for a half-step martial monarch." Xiao. The qi in Xiao Chen's heart surged out. His entire body felt very carefree. With the completion of saber intent, the sharpness in my heart will never be extinguished. From this moment on, Xiao Chen could truly be called a bladesman. Xie Ziwen's expression changed unpredictably. As he looked at Xiao Chen, whose white robes fluttered in the air and whose saber intent dominated the entire place, despair welled up in his heart. It can't be. It can't be. After I became famous, aside from the peak people of the great Jin nation, no one can defeat me. Xiao Chen is just a cultivator from the great Qin nation. It is impossible for him to defeat me. I want to win. I want to win. I want to snatch away his luck and become a peak genius of the great Jin nation. Xie Ziwen roared ferociously, and veins bulged on his forehead. He shouted, "Dance of 10,000 flames." Xie Ziwen formed hand seals, and the sea of fire around him surged up into the sky. The temperature of the entire plaza soared. The scorching air forced everyone to circulate their cultivation energies to disperse the heat wave. "Rise!" Xie Ziwen pointed at Xiao Chen. Sweat dripped down his face. This move had overdrawn all his essence, causing his face to pale. If he had not consumed the blood essence pill, he would not have been able to execute this move with his essence. Qi! 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 Thousands of arm-thick flame ribbons surrounded Xiao Chen from the sea of fire, trying to trap him. Xiao Chen's gaze turned cold, it was as sharp as a saber. He grasped his saber tightly with his right hand and swung it gently. With the support of the sharp saber intent, the saber light became extremely resplendent. Dang! 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 The bladesmen in the plaza could no longer hold on to their weapons. They all flew into the air. Eternal saber intent, inextinguishable sharpness. Using the saber intense sharpness, Xiao Chen did not advance. Instead, he retreated. This was the first time he brought out his full strength after advancing to peak medial grade martial king. Ka Xie. As the saber gleam swept past, the flame ribbons were sliced apart like noodles by the saber gleam. As the flame ribbons flew through the air, they gave off a dazzling red light. They looked very beautiful. Xiao Chen continued to descend like a hot knife through butter. Soon, he arrived before Xie Ziwen. Xiao Chen chopped all the flame ribbons into pieces. This upgraded version of the Dance of 1,000 Flames, which had given Xiao Chen a lot of trouble in the past, was broken like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Xiao! A sharp saber intent trembled in the arena. The mysterious phenomenon of flames that Xie Ziwen created using his state instantly scattered. Xie Ziwen's final move was only executed halfway before it was destroyed by such a tyrannical move. You lost. As the saber rested on Xie Ziwen's neck, Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he repeated what he said earlier. You lost. Xiao Chen's voice was as calm as ever, there were no fluctuations at all. The saber rested on Xie Ziwen's neck. With just one move, he could end Xie Ziwen's life. The entire place fell silent, no one said anything. As they looked at Xiao Chen, no one believed that he had relied on luck to clear the 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower. Xiao Chen tyrannically ended the mysterious phenomenon of the Sea of Flames. Xie Ziwen's pale face, which had overdrawn on his essence, became even paler. Pu Ci. Xie Ziwen vomited a large mouthful of blood. His overwhelming aura deflated like a balloon. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn was up, the medicinal energy of the blood essence pill completely dissipated. At this moment, the side effects of the blood essence pill appeared. Xie Ziyuan's eyes were listless, he felt completely drained of energy. His cultivation fell until he was a medial-grade martial king. It would be impossible for Xie Ziyuan to recover to his peak state within 3 months. This was the cruel side effect of the blood essence pill. Xiao. The evil moon pavilion's Gong Haoyu rushed over at lightning speed and grabbed Xie Ziyuan. He looked coldly and emotionlessly at Xiao Chen and said, "Very good. You have thoroughly offended the evil moon pavilion. I hope you will never step into the great Jin nation again. Otherwise, no one will be able to protect you." After Gong Haoyu said this, he grabbed Xie Ziyuan with one hand and soared into the sky, heading for the exit of the Tianwu Plaza. Boom! However, just as Gong Haoyu took a step into the air, he discovered an extremely sharp saber qi heading for his head at lightning speed. The saber qi contained an inextinguishable sharp saber intent. With the support of that saber intent, the might of the state of thunder in the saber qi more than doubled. Gong Haoyu's expression turned cold as he smashed his palm against the saber qi. Electricity flickered and exploded in the air. The saber light turned into a resplendent martial technique, illuminating the sky. This saber qi forced Gong Haoyu to descend. "Xiao Chen, what are you trying to do?" Gong Haoyu shouted angrily after he landed. Xiao Chen pointed his saber at Gong Haoyu. His calm face did not change as he said indifferently, "Did I say you could leave?" The 6-meter-long saber trembled continuously. A sharp saber intent spread out continuously. The saber intent pulled the weapons up into the air, causing them to tremble rapidly. When the thousands of cultivators in the Tianwu Plaza heard Xiao Chen's words, their brains short-circuited. What was Xiao Chen trying to do? Gong Haoyu was an outer sect elder of the Evil Moon Pavilion. He had already become a half-step martial monarch many years ago. Although Gong Haoyu's talent was limited and he would never be able to advance to martial monarch, he was still a bona fide half-step martial monarch. Gong Haoyu was not like Xie Ziyuan, who relied on medicinal pills to forcefully advance to half-step martial monarch. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Although Xiao Chen's victory over Xie Ziyuan was shocking, it was not impossible for a genius who had cleared the 8th floor. However, Xiao Chen was too crazy to make a move against Gong Haoyu. After all, Xiao Chen was still too young. He had not matured yet. There was still a gap between him and the experts of the older generation. Gong Haoyu remained expressionless as he gently tossed Xie Ziyuan's body off the platform. Then, Xie Ziyuan slowly landed on the ground. "It looks like I am really getting old. Youths are already so arrogant. Today, you attacked me first. Even if I kill you, the Heavenly Extermination Union will not be able to say anything." Xiao Chen smiled coldly to himself. This person is really shameless. If he had not threatened me, why would I make a move against him? Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, there was no need to drag this grudge to the great Jin nation to settle. Xiao Chen was not a person who waited 10 years for revenge. If there was an opportunity, Xiao Chen would deal with the other party now. There was no need to wait until they reached the other party's territory. Chapter 492. When Xiao Chen fought Xie Ziyuan, he had only used 60% of his strength. There were strong half-step martial monarchs and weak half-step martial monarchs. This Gong Haoyu was one of the weaker half-step martial monarchs. With Xiao Chen's current strength, he had at least a 50% chance of victory. Why not give it a try? Elder Shi, should we make a move to stop him? A Heavenly Extermination Union elder beside Shi Hailong asked worriedly. Shi Hailong thought for a while and remembered what Xiao Chen said to him before he went up. He said, "Let's wait and see. Xiao Chen should be free to make his own decisions. He will not fight a battle he is not confident of winning." Die! Gong Haoyu shouted and the aura of a half-step martial monarch spread out. His clothes and hair fluttered without any wind. He took 7 steps in the air and sent a palm strike at Xiao Chen. This palm strike was not fancy at all, it relied on the advantage of his cultivation. He wanted to clash head-on with Xiao Chen, giving him a show of strength from the start. Xiao Chen switched from holding his saber with one hand to holding it with both hands. When he faced the palm strike filled with surging essence, he did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and welcomed it head-on. Bang! The palm wind and the saber light clashed in the air, giving off a startling explosion. Ripples appeared in space and spread out in all directions. Gong Haoyu took 5 steps back. Xiao Chen was slightly weaker, taking 7 steps back. Such an outcome was far from what Gong Haoyu had hoped for. Gong Haoyu originally thought that this palm strike would be sufficient to suppress Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen's powerful counterattack told him that this was impossible. 5 peaks soaring. Gong Haoyu's expression turned grave. He no longer dared to underestimate Xiao Chen. So, he executed the martial technique he was most proficient in. Gong Haoyu soared into the air and 5 mountains of different styles appeared. When they linked together, they formed a meandering mountain range pressing down on Xiao Chen. Wukuei shakes the heavens. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen chose to clash head-on. The divine Wukuei tree appeared and carried a strong electric force as it smashed into the 5 lone peaks flying at him. Boom! The lone peak broke apart and lightning bolts raged in the sky. In the face of this powerful attack, the world immediately lost its color. War-turning mysterious peak. Gong Haoyu roared furiously. As he waved his palms, the shattered 5 mountains and rivers suddenly gathered together, forming a strange mountain peak. The mountain turned upside down, and its sharp tip pierced towards Xiao Chen like a sharp blade. Wukuei breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen's figure spun a few times in the air, dissipating the force of the earlier strike. Then, he pointed his saber forward. Lightning flashed in the sky, and a bright beam of light quickly elongated on the blade. The top of the beam of light instantly broke through the mountainside of the strange peak. Wukuei shakes. The entire mountain peak was immediately split into 2 halves, turning into countless mountain rocks that fell to the ground with a crashing sound. This phenomenon was condensed from the peak of the concept of Earth. It was like a real mountain. After the mountain shattered, it fell to the ground, creating deep pits in the Tianwu Plaza. When the spectating cultivators saw the falling rubble, they quickly made their moves to dodge it. The 2 people in the air did not have any intention of stopping. Gong Haoyu continuously sent out killing moves, one after another. The 2 people in the air did not have any intention of stopping. Gong Haoyu continuously used killer moves, one after another. However, Xiao Chen dealt with the attacks as they came. He would break one move after another. If he could not break it, he would do his best to block. He did not fear clashing head-on. The crowd was astonished. Originally, they thought it would be a one-sided battle. Who knew that it would be so intense? Xiao Chen did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Everyone was astonished. Originally, they thought that it would be a one-sided battle. Who knew that it would be so intense? Xiao Chen was not at a disadvantage at all. The 2 exchanged another move. Xiao Chen relied on the support of his saber intent to force back Gong Haoyu's overwhelming aura. The 2 exchanged another move. Xiao Chen relied on the support of his saber intent to force back Gong Haoyu's overwhelming aura. Xiao Chen stood in the air. His white robes fluttered in the wind as he looked at Gong Haoyu coldly. His saber flickered with an electric light. Gong Haoyu was astonished. He had not expected Xiao Chen to be so difficult to deal with. He had used all his killing moves, not holding back at all. However, he still could not do anything to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's originally imposing morale slowly declined, no longer as sharp as it was at the start. Xiao Chen tore off the blue strip of cloth on his forehead, and the red mark on his forehead started to flicker. He unleashed the state of massacre and merged it with the state of thunder. The saber started to flicker with a strange, alternating purple and red light. After the blue strip of cloth was removed, Xiao Chen's originally delicate face gained a strange air. Ka-xie. The saber light flashed, and an intense state of massacre surged out. The berserk lightning contained a sharp killing intent, easily breaking Gong Haoyu's palm wind. Xiao. Xiao Chen turned into a beam of purple light, no longer defending passively. Instead, he launched a sharp attack at Gong Haoyu. Taking advantage of the fact that Gong Haoyu's aura was exhausted, Xiao Chen launched a frenzied counterattack. Boom! 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 After merging the state of massacre, Xiao Chen brought out all his strength. Purple and red lights filled the air, forcing Gong Haoyu to retreat step by step. Retreat! 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 Gong Haoyu clenched his teeth, and his gaze turned sharp. He tried to rally his aura and charge back several times. However, Xiao Chen retaliated with even more ferocious attacks. Gong Haoyu retreated again and again in the air. His aura was completely exhausted, and he showed signs of defeat. Little bastard, go to hell! Gong Haoyu shouted. He no longer had the air of an expert as he launched a frenzied counterattack. Unfortunately, I won't die. Xiao Chen replied calmly. Then, he executed listening to the sword and communicating with it. His saber turned into a heaven-ranked spirit weapon again. Xiao Chen's counterattack increased in might once again. It swept out and knocked Gong Haoyu back, causing him to vomit blood. Then, he crashed into the Tianwu Emperor's statue. Pu Ci. The Tianwu Emperor's statue had a strange power protecting it. The rebound caused the severely injured Gong Haoyu to vomit another mouthful of blood. His figure was now in a sorry state. Ka-xie. In the air, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and tied the blue strip of cloth back to his forehead. The state of massacre immediately vanished, and his charming face regained its elegance. He glanced coldly at the severely injured Gong Haoyu before ignoring him. Hua la la. Whoosh. 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 The weapons that Xiao Chen's saber intent had pulled into the air fell to the ground as he withdrew his hand. When the severely injured Gong Haoyu saw Xiao Chen sheath his saber, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He pushed off the Tianwu Emperor's statue, and his figure flashed as he launched a sneak attack at Xiao Chen. You are seeking death. Xiao Chen snorted coldly. The blue dragon tattoo on his right hand moved quickly. He instantly executed the dragon claw fist, forming a claw with his right hand. Roar! A resonant dragon roar resounded. A huge azure dragon claw appeared on Xiao Chen's right claw. The dragon claw opened into a palm and smashed down ferociously. Pa! This palm pressed the sneak-attacking Gong Haoyu to the ground. He could not resist at all. His face was on the ground, and his body was deeply embedded in it. The two from the Evil Moon Pavilion charged over in a tyrannical manner. Xie Ziyuan's extremely arrogant voice seemed to echo in everyone's ears, Xiao Chen, get out here. However, in less than 2 hours, this old man and young man were both defeated by Xiao Chen's saber. One was beaten into a weakened state, and his cultivation regressed. The other was in an even more miserable state. He was directly embedded in the ground, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The two came in a domineering manner, yet they ended up in such a state. This made everyone sigh. As the crowd looked at the white figure slowly descending and saw his calm expression, they all thought of one word, tyrannical. Although Xiao Chen did not say any domineering words, nor did he have that kind of tyrannical aura, his actions truly made people feel a domineering aura that came from his bones. This fellow is really like the Thunder King of the past. If you are not as good as me, then don't threaten me. Who cares if you are a half-step martial monarch or have a super sect behind you? I will just fight you first. The 4 nations might have really produced a person who can rival the peak geniuses of the great Jin nation. I really look forward to the next 5-nation youth competition. I wonder how far he can go. It looks like the reputation of the white-robed bladesman is well deserved. This is really the era of the young. The experts of the older generation need to recognize their current situation. If they still try to put on airs and flaunt their seniority, they will not have a good time. Indeed. Now is the budding age of geniuses. It is best to be careful and not become a whetstone for those geniuses. Discussions broke out. Some people praised Xiao Chen's strength. There were also people of the older generation who sighed softly. When they saw Gong Haoyu's predicament, they felt sorrowful. There would always be geniuses in every generation. Each wave would be higher than the one before. However, this wave had arrived too quickly. In an unremarkable corner of the crowd, there was a person wearing a black cloak and a hood. There was a sinister scar on his face under the shadow. His entire person exuded an uncomfortable aura, and the surrounding people unconsciously distanced themselves from him. He was a cultivator with sharp eyes. A cultivator with sharp eyes recognized this person as someone from the dark church and took a few steps back, not wanting to form any sort of connection with him. The scarred man muttered in a soft voice, "I never found an opportunity to make a move. Now, he has actually grown to such a level. However, his cultivation is still lacking." After the scarred man spoke, he gave Xiao Chen another deep look before leaving quietly. Xiao Chen walked over to Shi Hailong and performed a cupped fist salute. He said apologetically, "Sorry, Senior Shi. I have caused trouble for the Heavenly Extermination Union." Shi Hailong had a wide smile on his face. He looked like he was bathed in the spring breeze. He waved his hand and said, "What are you saying? Just remember what I told you in the past. The Evil Moon Pavilion will not be able to cause any trouble in the ancient desolate land. Work hard and don't waste your luck. In the future, you will know how strong the luck of the ancient desolate tower is." Xiao Chen thanked Shi Hailong softly. Just as he was about to take his leave, a few strong auras quickly flew towards the Tianwu Plaza. Who? When these people arrived, a strong aura spread out. The air was compressed above everyone's heads and started spinning. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. This aura was the same as the martial monarchs he had seen before. Furthermore, they were all locked onto him. Oh no, the Evil Moon Pavilion's hidden pawns in Desolate City have all appeared. The expression of an elder beside Shi Hailong changed. On the surface, the Heavenly Extermination Union did not allow any of the great Jin nation's powers to enter Desolate City. However, as one of the two centers of the Tianwu continent, it was impossible for those super sects to not have any pawns. Otherwise, they would not know if something big happened. Chapter 493. Shi Hailong's face sank. However, there was no panic in his eyes. He smiled coldly and said, "Good timing. We can pull them all out by the roots." Xiao! 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 3 figures appeared in the center of the plaza. Their auras surged, and everyone immediately felt a strong pressure. The leader wore gorgeous blue robes and a jadeite thumb ring on his right hand. He looked exactly like a merchant. It looked like this person had rushed over in a hurry. He did not even have time to remove his usual disguise. However, when this person saw Gong Haoyu in the ground and the extremely weak Xie Ziwen, he sighed to himself. In the end, he was too late. Qi! The blue-robed cultivator raised his hand and pulled Gong Haoyu out of the ground. Then, he checked Gong Haoyu's pulse. He was still breathing. The blue-robed cultivator casually handed Gong Haoyu over to the person beside him. Then, he stared at Xiao Chen. He wanted to say something but did not say anything in the end. The blue-robed cultivator instructed another person to bring Xie Ziwen and prepared to take his leave. Shi Hailong smiled coldly but did not say anything. He looked at the 3 with a playful gaze. Bang! The 3 people who had soared into the air crashed into a formless wall. The huge rebound knocked them back to the ground in a sorry state. Bang! 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 The three tried again from other places. In the end, they were all knocked back in a sorry state. No matter how much essence they used, it was useless. On the contrary, the more essence chi he used, the more serious the injuries he suffered. The expressions of the three changed greatly. They looked around but could not sense who attacked them. They did not even know where their opponents were. They overestimate themselves. Coming to the Heavenly Extermination Union to behave atrociously, one half-step martial monarch is enough. Now, 3 martial monarchs came. The trial of the ancient desolate land is such a big event. The 5 giants of the Heavenly Extermination Union will definitely be here. However, it is not convenient for them to show their faces due to their status. If they do not show their strength, these people will think that they can come and go as they please in the Heavenly Extermination Union with just a few martial monarchs. The spectating cultivators also revealed expressions of interest, as if they were watching a good show. The leading blue-robed cultivator shouted to the sky, "Senior, please be merciful. From today onwards, the evil moon pavilion will not take half a step into Desolate City." A cold snort came from 7,000 meters up in the sky. Everyone could vaguely see 5 figures hidden in the boundless white clouds. Behind him, the wind and clouds surged, extending for hundreds of kilometers as they devoured and spat out a boundless grand scene. Scram! I will only say this once. My Heavenly Extermination Union will protect Xiaochen. We will not care about the fights between the youths. If he does not follow the rules and sends out the people of the older generation, the genius of the evil moon pavilion can forget about leaving the great Jin nation. His voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by the thousands of people present. It was as if he was speaking right beside their ears. Puchi. However, this voice was like a clap of thunder exploding in the ears of the evil moon pavilion's people. Every word was like a clap of thunder. Right after Xiaochen spoke, blood leaked out of the corners of the evil moon pavilion's people's mouths, but they did not show any dissatisfaction. After they respectfully thanked him, they quickly flew away. It is a good thing for the youths to be sharp. However, you must not be impetuous. Now that you have become famous at such a young age, don't let your fame stop you. Otherwise, not to mention becoming the second Thunder King, it will be hard for you to reach a higher level in the martial Tao. Take care of yourself. That melodious voice rang out in Xiaochen's mind. After giving him a warning, it cut off the connection with Xiaochen. The 5 figures completely disappeared into the clouds, vanishing without a trace. As Xiaochen watched the person who spoke, he felt that the figure was somewhat familiar. It was like he had seen it somewhere before. Elder Shi, who is the mysterious person who told the evil moon pavilion's people to retreat? Xiaochen asked Shi Hailong as he turned around. Shi Hailong smiled gently and said, "It is this generation's Heavenly Extermination Union's alliance chief." Brat, you are really lucky. I have never seen the alliance chief openly protect someone before. Xiaochen entered deep thought. He was now 70 to 80% sure of the white-robed person's identity. This was a banquet that never ended. The outstanding talents of the 4 nations had gathered because of the ancient desolate tower. Now, it was time for them to part. Xiaochen, there is still 1.5 years to the 5-nation youth competition. We will meet again at that time to finish that unfinished battle. Zuoimo walked forward and performed a cupped fist salute to Xiaochen. Even though he had seen Xiaochen's strength, it did not diminish his fighting spirit. Only with a goal would he have more motivation. Xiaochen nodded and said, "Definitely. Let's meet at the Great Jin Nation's Wind Cloud platform." The people who were on good terms with Xiaochen all came forward to congratulate him. Xiaochen did not show any reservation or arrogance. He treated them politely, performing cupped fist salutes in return. If others respect me, I will respect them tenfold. This was how Xiaochen did things. He would not change because of external factors. A month had passed since the trial of the ancient desolate tower. Xiaochen had bravely made it to the 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower. Then, he defeated the second disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion's Pavilion Master and the Evil Moon Pavilion's outer sect elder. This news spread like wildfire in Desolate City. Desolate City had existed for 10,000 years. There had never been a lack of legends. However, in the past 1,000 years, Desolate City had been quiet for too long. There had rarely been such an uproar. For the past month, everyone discussed this matter in their leisure time. The white-robed blades man who came from the Great Qin nation and comprehended saber intent at the age of 19. Many busybodies dug up this matter. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's internal strife. Even the proud people of the Holy Land suffered a crushing defeat at his hands. Shaoqin toyed with the various half-step martial monarchs in the demon battlefield. He openly snatched away the peak demon core of a few half-step martial monarchs. He won 100 consecutive victories in the wrestling ring, causing Gao Yangyu, who dominated the southern islands, to go bankrupt and lose his reputation. All these things made people sigh. This person's experiences were a legend. Many people waited in anticipation to see how far Shaoqin could go in the Wind Cloud Arena after 1.5 years. The Great Qin nation had monopolized the top 10 for many years. Could Shaoqin represent the 4 nations and break this stalemate, entering the top 10? There were even more people who compared Shaoqin to the Great Qin nation from thousands of years ago. This resulted in intense disputes. The main character of this storm, Shaoqin, had been so frustrated in the past month that he felt like his head was about to explode. Shaoqin finally knew that Desolate City lived up to its reputation as one of the 2 great centers of the continent. In the past month, countless sects of the 4 nations had extended olive branches to Shaoqin, inviting him to join their sections. The benefits they offered kept increasing, flabbergasting Shaoqin. They gave him as many 1,000-year-old spirit herbs as he wanted, an unlimited supply of medial-grade spirit stones, and 100 superior-grade spirit stones every month. Shaoqin remained calm. He knew what he wanted, so he rejected all of them. He just wanted to find a place to cultivate. However, after Shaoqin went to several courtyards, people would find him immediately. They would welcome him with smiles and politeness. He could not lose his temper and could only reject them. In the end, Shaoqin had no choice but to use the shape-shifting spell to silently find a quiet courtyard. Only then did he calm down. Just like that, half a month passed. Shaoqin spent the day comprehending by Shueiha's saber strike and the saber intent that he suddenly comprehended. Saber intent was hard to form. Shaoqin knew this principle as well. However, when he fought with the shoes that day, he was not able to comprehend it. However, when Shaoqin fought with the shoes, his saber intent seemed to flow naturally. With a thought, the qi in his heart gushed out and condensed into an inextinguishable saber intent. At night, Shaoqin spent all his time stabilizing his cultivation. His cultivation had increased in one day. Although the mysterious light of the ancient desolate tower did not have any side effects, his foundation was still unstable. He needed to solidify it. Otherwise, he would not be able to endure a drawn-out battle. On this particular night, the moon hung high in the sky, looking as bright as a silver plate. Motes of light fell to the ground, illuminating the courtyard in silence. In the bedroom, Shaoqin sat cross-legged on a prayer mat. He held 2 medial-grade spirit stones in each hand as he quickly circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. The spiritual energy in the 4 spirit stones flowed continuously into the Qi whirlpool in Shaoqin's dantian. They turned into drops of purple liquid and dripped down. After 1 hour, the medial-grade spirit stones lost all their luster, turning into 4 useless stones. Shaoqin calmly tossed away the 4 medial-grade spirit stones. With a flip of his palm, 4 more medial-grade spirit stones appeared in his universe ring. 4 medial-grade spirit stones for 1 hour. That was 8 medial-grade spirit stones for 2 hours. That was 48 medial-grade spirit stones for 12 hours in one night. If others found out about such a huge expenditure, it would be hard to imagine. Not to mention the fact that they did not have so many spirit stones to squander, even if they did, they would not dare to expend so much. Even if they could, they would not dare to expend so much energy. The capacity of their dantian was on a completely different level from Xiao Chen. They would not be able to endure such a large expenditure. This was the benefit of a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. It was something that people loved and hated at the same time. See. A trace of heat came from the room. Xiao Chen's body trembled slightly as he slowly withdrew his consciousness from cultivating. It was currently close to midnight. This was the coldest time of the day. How could there be heat? Suddenly, Xiao Chen opened his eyes and spread out his spiritual sense in a circular fashion. He discovered that the rooms connected to the bedroom were all burning. This fire was not ordinary. With a flip of his palm, Xiao Chen broke through the roof with his lunar shadow saber and flew out. A person with a sword on his back sat on the wall of the courtyard. He looked at Xiao Chen with a relaxed expression. Xiao. When Xiao Chen landed on the wall, he looked suspiciously at the person who started the fire. Chu Chaoyun, what is the meaning of this? Nothing, I'm just calling you out. Xiao Chen was speechless. He said, is that how you call people out? The moment you arrive, you burn down my house. A golden light flashed in Chu Chaoyun's eyes. The blazing flames were immediately extinguished, turning into motes of golden light that entered his eyes. Convenient. I don't even need to open my mouth. I just need to look at you. You feel the same way, right? A house was not worth Xiao Chen hurting himself. So, he did not want to linger on this topic. Xiao Chen asked directly, why are you looking for me? Pa. Chu Chaoyun placed his palm on the wall of the courtyard and gently patted it. Then, he moved back and stood on the door. Do you know that you are about to die? Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, do you think I will believe you? Chu Chaoyun said, not everyone is happy to see you rise up. The people you offended might not be able to do anything to you. However, not every faction will fear the Heavenly Extermination Union. Remember what I told you before. In this world, the title of genius is useless. The one who laughs last will be the final winner. The last one is king. Chapter 494. Leave desolate city within 3 days. Otherwise, no one will be able to save you. After Chu Chaoyun said this, he did not stay any longer. His figure flashed, and a sword of light appeared under his feet. Then, he quickly disappeared into the night. As Xiao Chen watched Chu Chaoyun leave, a shadow appeared in his heart. He had already been very careful. Unexpectedly, Chu Chaoyun still managed to find him. If Chu Chaoyun could find him, then those people who wanted to cause trouble for him would definitely be able to find him as well. It looked like he could not stay in Desolate City for long. The spiritual energy in Desolate City was much denser than outside. Xiao Chen had originally intended to stay for a few more days. Now, it looked like he could only leave early. Xiao Chen pushed off the wall of the courtyard and left. This courtyard could only be abandoned. Not long after Xiao Chen left, a few cultivators dressed in black nimbly jumped into the courtyard. When they saw the rubble, it was clear that the house had been burned down. The leader of the group revealed heavy suspicion in his eyes. He muttered, "This brat is really cautious. The moment we arrived, he burned down his house and spent a lot of money to buy the information from the wind-chasing sect. Yet, he wasted it." The eyes of the person at the side hid a heavy murderous intent. He said coldly, "It just so happens that he is about to leave Desolate City. It will be easier for us to make a move after he leaves." The leader of the black-clothed men smiled and said, "City Lord Gao is right. It would be too conspicuous to make a move in the city. It is better to leave the city. Let's return to our Holy Fire Manor branch first to discuss the details." Gao Yangyu said indifferently, "There is no need. Since I agreed to cooperate with you, I will not act alone. Just send someone to inform me when the time comes." Gao Yangyu's words were filled with pride. He did not care about the holy fire manner at all. After he spoke, he left. Leng Yun looked at the black-clothed men and asked, Uncle Qin, is this person reliable? What if he makes a move on us? Old Qin smiled coldly and said, don't worry. He lost all his fortune to Xiao Chen and hates him to the bone. With Xiao Chen's current strength, he will not be able to stop him alone. He will have to cooperate with us. Leng Yun said somewhat gloomily, however, this fellow's attitude is really unpleasant. He asked for 50% of the harvest the moment he opened his mouth. If not for father not agreeing to us making a move, how could he have the chance to speak like that? Old Qin smiled and said, don't bother about him. After all, he was once an influential figure in the southern islands. Give him some face. Xiao Chen was not very interested in the spirit stones on Xiao Chen. He only wanted to snatch back that peak demon core and open his sea of consciousness to advance to martial monarch. When Xiao Chen advanced to martial monarch, he would be able to obtain as many medial-grade spirit stones as he wished. He was very clear on what was more important. As for the operation failing, that was impossible. 2 half-step martial monarchs and 10-odd superior-grade martial kings were more than enough to ensure that nothing would go wrong. The next morning, Xiao Chen walked out of an inn in Barren City. He wanted to eat something and then leave Barren City. As for where he was going, he had already made up his mind long ago. As of now, his state of massacre was still too weak. He wanted to go to the deep-sea battlefield and refine his state of massacre there. After that, he would return to the great Qin nation to settle some matters with the Shao clan. After that, he would go to the imperial capital and participate in the 5-nation youth competition that happened once every 4 years. While 1.5 years might seem like a lot, with this arrangement, Xiao Chen felt that it was not enough. Boss, bring me another 5 kilograms of the best wine in the inn. I do not have enough thunder ox beef. Give me another half. Just as Xiao Chen descended the stairs, he heard a heroic cry. The thunder ox was a rank 6 spirit beast. Its meat was not only more delicious than ordinary beef, but it was also more chewy. After swallowing it, the fragrance would linger in the mouth. That feeling was indescribably comfortable. The most important thing was that the rank 6 spirit beast meat still contained some spiritual energy. Long-term consumption of it would be very beneficial to the physical body. There were many benefits, but the price was ridiculously high. Anyone could afford to eat a few kilograms a day. However, eating half a head in one go was too extravagant. Furthermore, based on the tone of the thunder ox, it sounded like it had already eaten half a head. Xiao Chen could not help but look over curiously. Xiao Chen saw a stout man sitting by the window on the 3rd floor. Beside a table that was larger than a regular table sat a stout man. He was drinking wine and eating meat in large mouthfuls. This person looked very satisfied and comfortable. Xiao Chen found this person familiar. He turned to the side and looked. Indeed, it was Bai Lishi. Waiter, why are you so slow? This old man is about to die from your dawdling. If you still don't come, this old man will go to another place. Bai Lishi was halfway through his sentence when he saw Xiao Chen's appearance. He was startled and startled. He did not even manage to chew the piece of meat properly before he swallowed it. The piece of meat was stuck in his throat, unable to move forward or backward. His expression was one of extreme pain. His earlier satisfied expression disappeared without a trace. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. Why did this fellow have such a big reaction when he saw me? There is no reason for this at all. Bai Lishi gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine and smacked the meat a few times. Only then did the piece of meat sink down. Xiao Chen immediately relaxed. Brother Xiao, you are here. Come, sit, sit. Eat as much as you want. It's my treat. Xiao Chen swept his gaze across the table. He was slightly stunned. What a fellow. Aside from the rank 6 thunder ox, there were also other rare beasts on the table. They were at least rank 5 spirit beasts. Some flew in the sky and some crawled on the ground, filling the table. Xiao Chen tore off a piece of deep purple thunder ox. The fragrant thunder ox was very tasty. He placed it in his mouth and chewed on it. Bai Lishi smiled in a fawning manner and said, "How is it? Little brother Xiao Chen, this beef is pretty good, right? Although this shop is small, in the entire southern district of Desolate City, this is the only place that dares to call itself the best." "Very good, it is very tasty." Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He sized up Bai Lishi's attire. He wore a pair of black open-toed gloves. On the surface, they looked like ordinary leather gloves. However, when Xiao Chen scanned them with his spiritual sense, he discovered several complicated talisman scripts. Based on the complexity of the talisman scripts, they were at least superior grade medial grade secret treasures. When Xiao Chen looked up, he saw a black talisman script necklace with a rhombus-shaped stone hanging at the end. With one look, he could tell that it was not an ordinary item. Bai Lishi wore a blue inner vest under his jacket. A strong spiritual qi came from it. The inner vest was at least a medial grade secret treasure. There were 2 black tiger shoulder pads on his shoulders. When Xiao Chen looked down, he saw that the shoes he wore were not ordinary either. There seemed to be 2 leg guards on his calves. What a fellow! He had a set of medial grade secret treasures on him. With such a large sum of resources, just the value of these items would cost him tens of millions of medial grade spirit stones. However, high-ranked medial grade secret treasures could not be bought with spirit stones. One would have to spend at least a few million medial grade spirit stones to make some connections and use some connections to obtain them. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. He smiled faintly and said, "Old Bai, does your butt still hurt? I really did not do it on purpose last time." Bai Lishi smiled magnanimously and said, "It's fine. It is just a small matter. I have long since stopped minding it. My butt is thick, it is fine to kick it a few more times." Since when did he become so magnanimous? There is definitely something strange about this fellow. Xiao Chen put down his wine cup and said in a low voice, "Tell me the truth. When the all-in-all victory token was activated, the person who spent a large sum on me and forced Gao Yangyu into bankruptcy was you?" Bai Lishi looked around cautiously. It seemed like he had expected Xiao Chen to ask this. He said, "It is not convenient to speak here. Come with me to the private room on the top floor." Dong! Dong! Bai Lishi casually tossed out a medial grade spirit stone and quickly led Xiao Chen to the top floor. The two found a quiet private room and closed the doors and windows. After they verified that no one was eavesdropping, Bai Lishi told Xiao Chen everything that happened that day in full detail. After Xiao Chen heard it, he felt somewhat shocked. Even though he already had some guesses, he was still astonished. "You are too courageous. I really don't know where you got your courage from." Bai Lishi chuckled and said, "From Qianren Island to the demon battlefield, everything that happened clearly shows that as long as I follow you, I will definitely benefit. Furthermore, I believe in your strength. At worst, if I lose, I will no longer mingle in the ancient desolate land." After that, Bai Lishi said somewhat embarrassedly, "I received news that Gao Yangyu went in and out of the wind-chasing sect several times. It seems like he is trying to find you. It seems like that fellow is determined to kill you and will no longer mingle in the ancient desolate land." Xiao Chen said calmly, "It has nothing to do with you. There is no need for you to blame yourself. Even if he did not seek trouble for me, I would seek trouble for him. Tell me, what kind of existence is the wind-chasing sect?" Now, Xiao Chen finally understood why Bai Lishi had been so shocked when he saw Xiao Chen. Bai Lishi nodded and said, "I knew that you would not mind. The wind-chasing sect is a neutral organization that seeks information. As long as you can afford it, you can obtain any information from them in the ancient desolate land. However, don't worry. Even if you did not seek me out, Old Bai intended to seek you out. In this desolate city, as long as you are willing to spend money, you can avoid the eyes and ears of the wind-chasing sect. It is just that the price is higher. I have already made arrangements. We will be able to leave the city by nightfall. Xiaochen thought for a while and knew that Bai Lishi was telling the truth. This inn was the closest inn to his courtyard. It looked like it was not a coincidence that Xiaochen met Bai Lishi here. Xiaochen shook his head and said, "Don't move for now. Let me ask you, with your current strength and this set of secret treasures, how strong are you?" Bai Lishi chuckled. Clearly, he was very satisfied with the treasures on him. He muttered, "I believe you know that there are strong and weak half-step martial monarchs. Normally, we divide half-step martial monarchs into 3 grades, small perfection, great perfection, and peak consummation half-step martial monarch. Right now, when I use my full power, I am already as strong as a peak small perfection half-step martial monarch. I should be able to deal with 5 or 6 small perfection half-step martial monarchs like Gong Haoyu in one go." Xiaochen felt astonished. He could not tell that this fellow had relied on a stroke of luck to become a nouveau riche. Now, he was ahead of him due to a freak combination of factors. When Xiaochen first arrived at the ancient desolate tower, his and Bai Lishi's strengths were about the same. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Xiaochen had fought bitterly along the way. Not to mention a narrow escape, he had put in thousands of times more effort than ordinary people to get to where he was now. Chapter 495. However, when compared to Bai Lishi, the difference was immediately obvious. Bai Lishi had easily won a large sum of spirit stones in a gamble. By relying on a full set of 10-odd medial grade secret treasures, Bai Lishi's combat prowess surpassed Xiaochen's. When Bai Lishi saw Xiaochen's depressed expression, his smile became even more cocky. He pretended to comfort Xiaochen, "Brother, don't overthink. This old brother is only ahead of you temporarily. However, there is still a long way to go. In terms of future potential, I am still not as good as you." Xiaochen smiled bitterly and said, "Never mind, let's not talk about this anymore. You should not be targeted yet. Help me ask around and see who exactly is investigating me." Bai Lishi was startled. He said, "What are you thinking of doing?" "I already made arrangements. I guarantee that you will be able to leave Desolate City safely tonight." Xiaochen muttered, "Just do as I say. There are some grudges that need to be resolved in advance. Otherwise, you will end up creating trouble for yourself in the future. If I cannot find you, your friends and family might fall into their hands. I do not want to leave behind unforgettable regrets." Bai Lishi thought for a while and still disagreed with Xiaochen's thoughts. He said, "Gao Yangyu is not easy to deal with. He became famous in the southern islands long ago. He has already become a great perfection half-step martial monarch." Xiaochen nodded and said, "Because of this, we need to make a decision early. Once he becomes a martial monarch, he will be even harder to deal with." Seeing Xiaochen's insistence, Bai Lishi did not have much to say. Although Bai Lishi had a rough character, he felt that what Xiaochen said made sense. However, he was worried that Xiaochen would be rash. After Bai Lishi left, Xiaochen found a room in the inn to stay in and continue to stabilize his cultivation. He was like a divine weapon. The outline of the weapon had already been formed. He still needed to polish it, making it sharp and filled with spirituality. Bai Lishi left for 2 days. The room in the inn was very spacious. After 2 days, Bai Lishi pushed open the door and sat down at the tea table in the hall. Xiaochen slowly opened his eyes and pushed open the door. When he saw the somewhat fatigued Bai Lishi, he asked, "Did you get what you wanted?" Bai Lishi took out a stack of information from his bosom. He smiled and said, "Brat, you have been extraordinarily popular recently. There are so many people looking for you. I collected at least 100 sets from the 4 branches of the wind-chasing sect." Xiaochen nodded in thanks and said, "Lishi, thank you for the trouble. I will give you the money." Bai Lishi chuckled and said, let's not talk about money. Right now, I lack everything but money. I'll be leaving first. If you need anything, just call me. Don't act rashly by yourself. Brother, I will be there at any time. This Li Shitu to Xiao Li Shitu. Li Shitu, he, Chen Chen Chen. Li Shi, he Lido Chen. Chen. Bai, he to with. There was a small pile of information on the table. There was a detailed introduction of the backer, strength, and personal information of every person looking for Xiao Chen. The detailed information taught Xiao Chen a lesson. He now understood why he was always the first to be found. The extremely detailed information really taught Xiao Chen a lesson. He now somewhat understood why he was always the first to be found by others. 4 hours later, Xiao Chen finished reading all the documents on the table. Then, he spent another hour categorizing them. The first type did not pose much of a threat. They were the various sects that had not given up yet. They still wanted to extend an olive branch to Xiao Chen. The second type was more interesting. Many youths wanted to challenge Xiao Chen. They wanted to use this opportunity to become famous. There was no need to bother with these two types. They did not have any malicious intent towards Xiao Chen. However, the third type made Xiao Chen wary. The Holy Fire Manners Qin Yu had spent a lot of money 3 times to track down Xiao Chen's whereabouts. The Holy Fire Manners Qin Yu had spent a lot of money 3 times to track down Xiao Chen's whereabouts. The final record was for the wind-chasing sect to keep an eye on Xiao Chen and inform him when Xiao Chen left the city. Xiao Chen thought for a while and remembered who this Qin Yu was. It was the Holy Fire Manners inner sect elder whose peak blood demon's demon core Xiao Chen snatched away from him in the demon battlefield. It looks like this fellow is waiting for me to leave the city to ambush me. He is also a great perfection half-step martial monarch. He will not be easy to deal with. Xiao Chen continued reading and finally found Gao Yangyu's record. He had gone together with Qin Yu. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. Unexpectedly, 2 great perfection half-step martial monarchs worked together. This would not be easy to deal with. Xiao Chen looked down and saw the wind-chasing sex analysis. His eyes could not help but light up, and a smile appeared on his face. Unexpectedly, Gao Yangyu did not stay with the Holy Fire Manor. Xiao Chen had not expected such a good opportunity. However, there was no record of Chu Chaoyun in all the information. This made Xiao Chen suspicious. If this person did not go through the wind-chasing sect, how did he find him? Unable to figure it out, Xiao Chen could only put it aside for now. He destroyed all the information and called Bai Lishi to his room to explain his plan. You want to take the initiative to attack and kill off Gao Yangyu. After that, you will destroy the Holy Fire Manor's branch in Desolate City. When Gao Yangyu heard Xiao Chen's plan, he could not help but be startled. Xiao Chen said calmly, "That's right. We cannot give him a chance to work together with Qin Yu. Otherwise, we will not stand a chance." Bai Lishi remained silent for a while. Then, he laughed loudly and said, "Brat, only you have such boldness. I, old Bai, will do it with you. That group of people is still waiting for you to leave the city. They probably never dreamed that you would take the initiative to attack. Just tell me what you want me to do." Xiao Chen looked at Bai Lishi calmly and asked, "Are you not afraid?" Bai Lishi chuckled and said, "I am a bachelor. What is there to be afraid of? Now that the age of geniuses has sprouted, when the great age arrives, who will be the main character? I, old Bai, have set my mind on you. If I make the right bet and you become the main character of this age, the benefits I will gain will be greater than what I have to pay." The age of geniuses had arrived, the great age was coming. A martial emperor would definitely be born. As long as Bai Lishi made the right bet, he would gain the friendship of the future Emperor Wu. This benefit would be thousands or even tens of thousands of times better than any natural treasure or spirit pill. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "I do not care who the main character is. If you help me, I will definitely remember your kindness. After the two finished their discussion, Bai Lishi made his move again. He wanted to find Gao Yangyu's residence at all costs. As for Xiao Chen, he started to make his final preparations. Xiao Chen took out the remaining half of the Wutong spiritual wood from the universe ring and closed his eyes. Then, he started to recall all sorts of things worth carving. After a while, the image of a rank 10 frost flood dragon was deeply imprinted in his mind. Opening his eyes, Xiao Chen already had an idea in his heart. If we are going to play, let's play it big. 3 days later, Xiao Chen found out where Gao Yangyu was staying. Everything was ready. When the sky turned dark, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi immediately set off. Barren City was a city of water. There were countless rivers and lakes everywhere in the city. In a small lake in the northern district, there was a huge lake. In a small lake in the northern district, there was a pavilion in the center of the lake. Below the pavilion was a winding wooden path that extended to the shore. In a hidden spot by the lake, Xiao Chen was somewhat astonished. He said, "Who said that this fellow went bankrupt? Even cultivators would not be able to live in such a large house by himself." Bai Lishi smiled embarrassedly and said, "A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. This fellow has been operating in Wrestling City for half his life. He definitely has a few backup plans." Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Let's go, then." Bai Lishi picked up the huge axe on his back and a ruthless expression flashed on his face. He said, "I'll make the first move later." The two withdrew their auras and walked silently on the winding plank path, heading for the pavilion in the center of the lake. Break for this old man. When Bai Lishi was 100 meters away from the pavilion, he suddenly erupted. His huge axe quickly enlarged. He shouted and hacked down at the pavilion. Bang! 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 A burst of light flickered above the pavilion and collided with the huge axe blade, creating a crackling sound. Pillars of water shot up from the surface of the lake. Unexpectedly, there was a simple defensive barrier in the wooden pavilion. However, Bai Lishi was not surprised. The talisman scripts on his black leather gloves slowly lit up. Break! Bai Lishi shouted again and chopped down with the huge axe, which had already grown 100 meters long. Chi! Chi! The barrier around the pavilion shattered with a ka-cie sound. The axe chopped down unobstructed, chopping the huge pavilion in half. The axe landed on the lowest floor of the pavilion, giving off a melodious clang. Bai Lishi wanted to pull his axe back but he felt something clamp down on it, he could not pull it out no matter what. Boom! The two halves of the pavilion fell towards the lake. Gao Yangyu stood on the water and a strong aura spread out. He used one hand to clamp down on Bai Lishi's axe. Dang! Gao Yangyu snorted coldly and struck the axe with his palm. The axe immediately shrank back to its original size. On the winding path, Bai Lishi could not help but take a few steps back. When Gao Yangyu saw Xiao Chen beside Bai Lishi, his gaze immediately turned cold. His face turned frosty as he said in a cold voice, "I did not look for you, but you actually came to look for me. You are really bold." Bang! Gao Yangyu stomped heavily on the water, and a semicircular screen of water appeared behind him. His figure flickered. Boundless ripples spread out from his palm. It was like a gushing waterfall appeared in the night sky. Gao Yangyu used the might of the waterfall to smash at Xiao Chen. Boom! 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 The sound of the waterfall reverberated in the surroundings, it was like a real waterfall. Who? The other party's momentum was surging. Xiao Chen chose to dodge for now. He pushed off the ground and his figure immediately drifted away. Pa! 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 The gushing waterfall in the sky gathered into Bai Shuihe's palm before exploding. The winding path under Bai Shuihe's feet immediately shattered, and a huge pillar of water shot up from the lake. Bang! Bai Lishi broke through the pillar of water and hacked at Gao Yangyu with his axe. There was nothing fancy about this move, it was just a horrifying force. When Gao Yangyu swung his axe, the air was like thin paper. It seemed to have been chopped in half, and an indistinct crack appeared. Splash! Gao Yangyu's right palm moved back and forth in front of him. A wave of water swam around his palm. The water attributed spiritual energy on the lake quickly gathered there. When the axe arrived before Gao Yangyu, he smashed it with his palm. The surging steam exploded, and the huge force knocked Bai Lishi back by 100 meters. Who? When the wave fell, a figure flashed. It was Xiao Chen attacking again. He clenched his right fist tightly, and the blue dragon tattoo on his arm swam about. Chapter 496. A resonant dragon roar resounded on the surface of the lake. A dragon head appeared on his fist, roaring ferociously. You overestimate yourself. How dare you attack me? Gao Yangyu did not panic. He circulated his essence and sent out a palm strike. The dragon head vanished, and Xiao Chen somersaulted 3 times in the air, dissipating the force. Then, his left hand turned into an azure dragon claw. Another resonant dragon roar resounded. Gao Yangyu dodged to the side and arrived at Xiao Chen's left side. Then, he flew forward and sent out a palm strike. Roar! The dragon roar resounded endlessly. Xiao Chen clenched his right fist and merged his vital qi and essence, clashing head-on with Gao Yangyu. Bang! The instant the fist and palm met on the calm surface of the lake, waves rose 100 meters high and filled the sky with raindrops. Gao Yangyu, who had remained motionless all this while, finally took 3 steps back from this palm strike. However, Xiao Chen was in an even more miserable state than Gao Yangyu. He took 10 steps back before he could stand stably on the water. Ha! Before Gao Yangyu could stand stably, Bai Lishi quickly stepped on the water. With every step he took, a pillar of water shot up into the sky. Gao Yangyu's face sank slightly as he forcefully suppressed the fluctuations of his qi and blood. Then, he sent out 2 palm strikes. Palm winds howled and the sound of a waterfall resounded endlessly. The 2 huge impacts instantly neutralized Bai Lishi's ferocious attack. Bai Lishi took 2 steps back on the water and chuckled, "Old man, why do you not have any strength left? Receive another attack from me." Gao Yangyu raged in his heart. These 2 people were not a match for him. However, when they worked together, Gao Yangyu did not have a chance to catch his breath. Without giving him a chance to catch his breath, he felt a wave of powerlessness. He had to get rid of one of them first. Gao Yangyu looked around and made up his mind. He stomped heavily on the water, and a crack appeared on the surface of the lake. The water parted just like that. Bai Lishi missed a step and fell into the crack. He felt extremely depressed. Gao Yangyu ignored Bai Lishi and snorted coldly. Then, he charged at Xiao Chen at lightning speed. "I've been waiting for you." The dragon head on my right hand and the dragon claw on my left hand spread open. A blue dragon shadow flickered behind me. And Xiao Chen shouted and a complete dragon image appeared behind him. Then, he punched at Gao Yangyu, who was flying over. Roar! The roar of the heaven dragon resounded across the surface of the lake. The azure dragon's shadow left its body and a supreme dragon's might spread across the lake. On the surface of the lake, the water rippled, stirring up layers upon layers of waves. Gao Yangyu's expression immediately changed. He waved his palms and the lake water beneath his feet formed a water shield in front of him. The dragon head smashed into the water shield and with a ka-cie sound, the water shield split apart. Then, the dragon tail swung and sent Gao Yangyu flying. "Motherfucker, how dare you let your grandfather drink water?" Bai Lishi, who had sunk to the bottom of the lake, broke out of the water and headed for the descending Gao Yangyu. The black leather gloves on his hands glowed with a blue light, increasing the explosive power of his axe to its peak. Boom! Caught off guard, Gao Yangyu, who had just eaten a mouthful of water, was struck into the water by the axe. He tumbled for a long distance before he stopped. Did you really think that I would come and find you just because I had some confidence? Xiao Qin said expressionlessly to Gao Yangyu as he walked on the surface of the lake. Back in the wrestling ring, this fellow had repeatedly caused trouble for Xiao Qin. He probably did not expect such a day to come. Gao Yangyu stood up in a somewhat sorry state. When he saw the two approaching, he roared ferociously and charged over again. Bang! 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 The three of them clashed once again. Without a doubt, Gao Yangyu's strength was stronger than either of the two of them. However, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi were exceptionally patient. They did not make any mistakes and worked together to wear him down. After one person finished fighting, the other would immediately take over, not giving Gao Yangyu any chance to catch his breath. Time slowly went by. The injuries that Gao Yangyu suppressed became increasingly severe, the pressure on him increased. If he could not suppress his internal injuries and erupted, he would be in grave danger. On the other hand, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi had a better chance to recover. There were no hidden injuries in their bodies. The more they fought, the more valiant they became, refusing to let go of Gao Yangyu. No, if this drags on, we will really die here. Unexpectedly, in just a short 1 or 2 months, this brat managed to grow to such a level. Gao Yangyu did his best to execute a big move, causing the water to surge continuously, forcing back Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi. Gao Yangyu wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. He smiled coldly and said, "If the two of you work together, I am indeed not a match for you. However, if I want to leave, you will not be able to stop me. Just wait for my rage." As long as there was life, there was hope. Gao Yangyu was not someone who did not know how to adapt. If he left first and worked together with Qinyu, he would not have to fear these two. Indeed, at their cultivation realm, it was easy to defeat the other party. However, it would be difficult to kill the other party. Unless one had an overwhelming advantage in strength, it would be hard to keep the other party here. As Xiao Chen watched Gao Yangyu leave, his expression did not change much. He casually tossed a wooden sculpture to the bottom of the lake and quickly formed hand seals. Life bestowal spell. Bang! Xiao Chen shouted, and a huge whirlpool appeared in the center of the lake. All the water in the lake quickly surged toward the whirlpool. A dragon roar came from the whirlpool, and a flood dragon burst out of the water. All the water in the lake soared up. Gao Yangyu felt that something was wrong, so he turned his head back to look. He saw a 200-meter-long frost flood dragon less than a meter behind him. The huge dragon head felt like it was right in front of him. Pa! Before Gao Yangyu could react, the frost flood dragon spat out a beam of cold qi at him. The cold qi quickly froze at a visible speed. When it struck Gao Yangyu's chest, the hidden injuries that he had been suppressing for a long time erupted. Pu ci. Gao Yangyu vomited a large mouthful of blood and fell heavily into the water like a broken kite. The frost flood dragon sent out an attack, and Xiao Chen quickly cancelled his spell. A wooden sculpture descended, and he opened his hand to pull it over. Cracks appeared on the wooden sculpture, it looked like it would shatter at any moment. Xiao Chen frowned and said, "Using Wutong's spiritual wood to materialize a rank 10 flood dragon is too much. It probably won't work even if I use it one more time. Xiao Chen, how should we deal with this fellow?" Bai Lishi asked as he carried the heavily injured Gao Yangyu like he was a toy and walked over to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen put away the wooden sculpture and glanced at Gao Yangyu. Then, a horrified expression appeared on Gao Yangyu's face. Xiao Chen stretched out his finger and placed it on Gao Yangyu's forehead. A strand of purple flame shot out, and a bloody hole appeared in Gao Yangyu's head. Then, his body went limp and fell over. Xiao Chen removed Gao Yangyu's spatial ring and tossed it to Bai Lishi. Then, he said casually, "Let's go to the Holy Fire Manor's branch." The Holy Fire Manor was considered a first-rate power in the southern islands. The manor lord and a supreme elder were martial monarchs. With 2 bona fide martial monarchs holding down the fort and 12 half-step martial monarch inner sect elders, they were indeed very strong in the southern islands. However, when considering the entire ancient desolate land, such a power was not sufficient. This was clear from the Holy Fire Manor's branch in Desolate City. The Holy Fire Manor occupied only 100 acres of land. Compared to the Thousand Sword Pavilion's branch, it was much smaller. Although the Holy Fire Manor was small, it had everything: fake mountains, flowing rivers, pavilions, corridors, and flower racks. However, the Holy Fire Manor was much smaller. Looking down from above, it was only the size of a palm. It would be quite cramped with so many buildings. Leng Yun and Qin Yu leisurely played a game of Go in a secluded hall with simple and unadorned decorations in the courtyard. There were 15 lanterns at the side. 15 flames swayed gently, illuminating the hall like it was daytime. Uncle Qin, that fellow has been hiding in the inn recently. Does he not want to leave Desolate City? Old Qin smiled faintly and placed down a Go stone. He said, Xiao Yun, be more patient. Although we have the connecting chains talisman to avoid the eyes and ears of the sages, it is still too conspicuous in Desolate City. Let him live for a few more days. Leng Yun glanced at the messy Go board and said in frustration, this fellow snatched away my Extreme Yin Flame's origin flame. If father finds out, he will strip me of my status as a legitimate son. I will not be able to rest until I get it back. However, Qin Yu smiled coldly to himself. Who asked you to covet that peak demon core back then? Even if you are not capable, you still went to join in the fun. Serves you right for this retribution. However, Qin Yu's expression did not change at all. He smiled and said, young manor master, don't worry. If he does not leave the city in half a month, we will contact Gao Yangyu and kill him. With our strength, dealing with him together will not be difficult. Is that so? Suddenly, cold laughter came from the hall. The flames of the 15 lanterns swayed wildly, and a killing chi appeared for no reason. Qin Yu's expression changed. He looked straight at the door and said, do you not know where this is? How dare you come here and cause trouble? At the same time, Qin Yu gestured to the right and instructed Leng Yun to go out the back door to call for help. Stop calling for help. Only the 2 of you are left in this courtyard. Bang! 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 The corpses carried surging energy as they smashed the door to the side hall into pieces. Then, they landed heavily in front of the group. The corpses all died in the same state. A bloody hole appeared on their foreheads. Their eyes were wide open, and they died with grievances. When Leng Yun and Qin Yu saw the familiar corpses on the ground, their hearts immediately sank. Who was so powerful? To think that they managed to silently kill all the guards in the courtyard in such a short time. Dong! 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 Outside the open door, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi walked in with their heads held high. They looked at the 2 coldly. It's you. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes, feeling extremely astonished. He had not expected that when he did not go looking for Xiao Chen would take the initiative to kill his way over. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, Old Qin, we meet again. Qin Yu remained expressionless as he said in a cold voice, good. Instead of living for a few more days, you actually dared to take the initiative to send yourself over. This saves me the trouble of looking for you. Bai Lishi tossed out Gao Yangyu's corpse and said, Gao Yangyu said the same thing. Unfortunately, he is dead now. The moment Gao Yangyu's corpse appeared, Leng Yun's expression immediately changed. Even the calm Qin Yu's expression turned unnatural. Uncle Qin, help me hold on for a while. I'll go find someone to help. When Leng Yun saw that the situation was bad, he quickly fled, heading for the back door. Bang! When Leng Yun arrived at the door, a strong figure blocked his way. Bai Lishi smiled and said, why are you running? Let me play a few moves with you. Chapter 497. When Qin Yu saw Bai Lishi leave Shao Chen, he found an opportunity and attacked at lightning speed. A pale white flame burned on his palm, and the surrounding air instantly turned cold. Shao Chen's eyes lit up. This person actually has an extreme yin flame as well. If I collect it well, my lunar true flame will grow stronger. Even though Shao Chen thought this, his hands did not slow down. He sent out a palm strike as well. A purple pure yang true flame burned on his palm. Bang! Yin and yang countered each other. The instant the two palms clashed, they produced a strong explosive force. A shockwave surged out, tearing apart half of the side hall. Even Bai Lishi and Leng Yun, who were fighting, received a significant impact. The shockwave knocked them back a few steps. Leng Yun was in an even worse state. His complexion was pale, and blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. However, old Qin did not care about that. He stood firm and charged at Shao Chen again, intending to deal with Shao Chen as quickly as possible. Shao Chen dealt with Shao Chen calmly, not panicking at all. After 10 odd moves, he was only knocked back 100 meters. He did not suffer any substantial damage. Qin Yu felt depressed. He thought back to a few months ago, when he could crush Shao Chen as easily as crushing an ant. Unexpectedly, Shao Chen had grown to such a level in such a short time. After exchanging 10 odd moves with Shao Chen still did not completely crumble. Shao Chen glanced at the fight between Bai Lishi and Leng Yun. It was nearing its end. Shao Chen's expression became even more relaxed. He no longer clashed head-on with Shao Chen, all he needed to do was delay him and not let him leave. After a while, a miserable shriek rang out. Leng Yun finally died at Bai Lishi's hands. This was within expectations. Given Bai Lishi's strength, which was equivalent to a half-step martial monarch's, being able to last for so long was already very impressive. Retreat. After Leng Yun died, Qin Yu knocked back Shao Chen with one move. Then, he decisively retreated, wanting to leave this place. You want to leave? It's not that easy. If Shao Chen let this person leave and notified the Holy Fire Manor's headquarters, 2 martial monarchs would be a great threat to Shao Chen and Bai Lishi. Kacha! Shao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber at his waist, and a sharp saber intent surged out. A resplendent purple saber chi immediately blocked Qin Yu's path of retreat. Dang! Bai Lishi's attack soon followed. With the two of them working together, they completely blocked off Qin Yu's path of escape. There was not much suspense in the remaining battles. Qin Yu was weaker than Gao Yangyu, so how could he be a match for Shao Chen and Gao Yangyu? After holding on for an hour, Shao Chen slashed his throat with his saber. Then, Shao Chen extracted the origin flame of the extreme yin flame in his body. Then, he and Bai Lishi quickly left this place. According to the original plan, the two of them left the barren city overnight, and only stopped after traveling for a full 10 miles. At the Heavenly Extermination Lake, Shao Chen said gratefully to Bai Lishi, "Many thanks for your help. If not for you, the operation would not have gone so smoothly." Without Bai Lishi's help, Shao Chen would not have been able to eliminate the 2 hidden dangers so smoothly. Be it Gao Yangyu or Qin Yu, they would not have been easy for him to deal with. Even if Shao Chen had used all his trump cards and obtained the final victory, he would have suffered significant internal injuries. It would not have been like this, where he had only exhausted a large amount of essence without any major problems. Bai Lishi chuckled and said, "I found it very exciting as well. You have given me all the gains from the 2 half-step martial monarchs. Now, we are even." "That's right, what do you plan to do next?" Bai Lishi asked after a pause for a while, looking at Shao Chen. Shao Chen answered honestly, "I plan to make a trip to the deep-sea battlefield to temper myself and refine my killing chi." Shao Chen had obtained the state of massacre from the Scarlet Throne. In the end, it was not his own. When he used it, he felt that it was still lacking. Hence, he had to go to the deep-sea battlefield. Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "What a coincidence. I am going to the deep sea battlefield as well. The East Shallow Sea's third grade battlefield is about to open. I was planning to go with a friend. If you do not mind, we can go together. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. He said, such a coincidence. Bai Lishi smiled and said, if not for going to the deep sea battlefield, why do you think I bought so many secret treasures? Xiao Chen thought for a while before agreeing to the other party's invitation. Coincidentally, there were many things that he did not understand. With Bai Lishi's guidance, he could save himself a lot of trouble. In a port city in the easternmost part of the Great Chu nation, merchant ships entered and left the bustling port. Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi stood at the shore of the port. However, they were not in a rush to board the ship. Naturally, the East Shallow Sea was in the east of the continent. If they wanted to save time, they could only go to the Great Chu nation in the east. After leaving Desolate City, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi traveled at full speed. After 7 days and 7 nights, they arrived at the port. Speaking of which, Bai Lishi, who exactly is the friend you mentioned? Even now, you are not willing to tell me. Is there a need to be so mysterious? After leaving the ancient desolate land, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi relaxed. No matter how strong the holy fire manner was, they would not be able to reach the Great Chu nation. When they chatted, they did not have any misgivings. Bai Lishi smiled and said, you will know when you arrive. It will definitely be a pleasant surprise for you. Xiao Chen had asked Bai Lishi a few times, but the other party gave him the same answer every time. So, he could only give up. Xiao Chen's curiosity was completely piqued. What kind of person could give him such a pleasant surprise? The last time we went to the Rank A battlefield, there were about 10 people. However, only the 2 of us survived, Bai Lishi said with a drawn-out sigh. Xiao Chen asked, what kind of place is the deep sea battlefield? Can you tell me more about it? Bai Lishi muttered to himself, it is time to tell you. There are demons coming out of the spatial crack in the boundless sea at every moment. However, demons are also divided into ranks. Just like humans, they will gather together if their strength is similar. It is just like how martial monarchs will not mix with martial saints, it is impossible for them to mix together. According to the strength of the demons, the factions of the boundless sea divide the regions where the demons live into 6 ranks. Once the number of demons in a certain region reaches a certain number, they will gather all the cultivators in the world to surround and suppress them. Xiao Chen thought for a while and understood what Bai Lishi meant. He continued to ask, has the 6th rank battlefield ever opened? Bai Lishi smiled and said, it is best not to. Once the peak rank battlefield opens, all the martial sages in the world will rush over. Furthermore, based on history, once the 6th rank battlefield opens, the demonic calamity will not be far away. Dong! 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 Just at this moment, soft footsteps came from behind the 2. Bai Lishi did not turn around. He smiled and said, the person we are waiting for is here. Xiao Chen turned his head to look and saw a middle-aged bladesman in azure with long hair draped over his shoulders. He exuded a sharp aura and a set of facial features. The bloody bladesman, Sun Guangquan. When Xiao Chen saw this person's face clearly, he exclaimed softly in astonishment. He had met Sun Guangquan once before. Sun Guangquan was one of the 10 great bladesmen of the ancient desolate land. He had comprehended saber intent many years ago. The rumor about Sun Guangquan's strength was that unless a martial monarch appeared, no one could defeat him. Back on Qianren Island, Xiao Chen had not seen Sun Guangquan make a move. However, he could clearly sense that Sun Guangquan was much stronger than the others. That was the intuition of a bladesman. Xiao Chen had not expected that the friend Bai Lishi mentioned would be Sun Guangquan. To him, this was a pleasant surprise. Sun Guangquan had comprehended saber intent many years ago. Xiao Chen had only comprehended saber intent recently. With this person's guidance, he would definitely improve rapidly. Sun Guangquan sized up Xiao Chen and immediately sensed the buzzing saber intent in Xiao Chen's body. He was slightly stunned and guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Bai Lishi smiled and said, "Old son, you must have heard of Xiao Chen before. This time, he will be coming with us to the deep-sea battlefield." Sun Guangquan nodded and smiled softly. Who in the world of bladesmen does not know the name of the white-robed bladesman? Xiao Chen smiled embarrassedly and said, "Before senior son, how could I dare to be called a bladesman?" When Sun Guangquan heard what Xiao Chen said, he waved his hand and smiled. "Don't call me senior, I don't dare. Our strengths are about the same. Let's talk as equals. If you don't mind, you can just call me old son like old Bai does." The bloody bladesman Sun Guangquan could be considered a true bladesman. With such a humble attitude, Xiao Chen's impression of Sun Guangquan improved significantly. Xiao Chen no longer felt restrained. He said, "Big brother Sun is too polite." Bai Lishi looked at the two of them interacting with each other. He smiled and said, "I say, the two of you, stop being so polite. Quickly board the ship. If not, we will have to wait another day." The merchant ship set sail and headed for the true depths of the boundless sea, embarking on a long journey. Even with the help of the ocean currents, it would take at least a month to reach the true eastern shallow sea. Naturally, Xiao Chen could not waste such a long time. Aside from his usual cultivation, he would seek out Sun Guangquan every day to discuss his experiences with the saber. As a senior, Sun Guangquan did not hide anything from Xiao Chen. He answered all of Xiao Chen's questions in detail. There were some things that Sun Guangquan did not dare to be certain of. He would discuss them with Xiao Chen before coming to a conclusion. When they had nothing to do, the two would find an opportunity to compare notes with each other. With such a senior, Xiao Chen had benefited a lot along the way. Using this opportunity, Xiao Chen started to practice the four-season saber technique that Bai Shuihe passed on to him. Back then, in the ancient desolate tower, the spot of light that Bai Shuihe shot out was the secret manual for the four-season saber technique. The four-season saber technique was like the Wukuei saber technique, they were both peak earth-ranked saber techniques. However, the four-season saber technique focused more on intent and not form. Hence, it was much more difficult to comprehend. As Xiao Chen fought with Sun Guangquan, he continuously perfected his four-season saber technique. As a fellow bladesman, Sun Guangquan could keenly point out the inadequacies of Xiao Chen's saber technique. After traveling for many days, they were no longer far from the eastern shallow sea. On this particular day, the three gathered together and started chatting. Then, Xiao Chen thought of a question. He said, "Big brother Sun, I have some doubts. Why are you known as the Bloody Bladesman and the ancient desolate land's 10 great bladesmen? Why have I not heard anyone mention them in Desolate City?" When Sun Guangquan heard this, he could not help but smile. He said, "The ancient desolate land's 10 great bladesmen were known by that name many years ago. Everyone knows their own limits. Now, there are too many geniuses. This is the budding era of geniuses. Everyone is very low profile, afraid that they might end up as stepping stones." Bai Lishi added, "That is true. The experts of the older generation all value their reputation. They are all in closed-door cultivation. No one mentions their previous titles, like the 4 great bladesmen and 4 great swordsmen of Desolate City anymore." Chapter 498. Xiao Chen did not expect this to be the reason. He could not help feeling a little awkward. Sun Guangquan laughed heartily and said, "I'm not talking about you. In fact, I don't like people who take advantage of their seniority. They don't dare to face the truth and still insist on putting up a strong front. They deserve to be slapped in the face and used as a stepping stone. When I was young, I did a lot of these things." As for why he's called the Blood Blades Man, just as Sun Guangquan was about to explain, the merchant ship suddenly came to a stop. With their cultivation bases, they were naturally unaffected by this extreme change in speed. However, the ornaments in the room were not so lucky. It fell to the ground, and some of the porcelain was smashed into pieces. Bai Lishi said doubtfully, "Strange, why did it suddenly stop? Furthermore, it stopped in such a rush." "Let's go out and take a look," Sun Guangquan suggested. Dong dong dong. Just as the three of them were about to take action, there was an urgent knock on the door. The door opened and an attendant said in a fluster, "The three of you must be cultivators. Please gather on the deck quickly." Xiaochen asked, "What happened? Did you run into a pirate ship?" The attendant squeezed out an ugly smile and said, "It's even more troublesome than a pirate ship. It's a warship of the Black Dragon Society." Black Dragon Society. Bai Lishi and Sun Guangquan could not help but exchange strange glances. "Could it be that you want us to help you resist the Black Dragon group?" "That would be difficult." The attendant said, "No, it is the Black Dragon group's request. All the cultivators who are preparing to participate in the third-grade battlefield must gather on the deck." The Black Dragon Triad was the largest force in the Endless Sea. Its fleet cruised the seas in all directions. 5,000 years ago, after a fierce battle with the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace, the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace occupied half of the islands in the Eastern Shallow Sea, making it the overlord of the Boundless Sea. Back then, the Divine Dragon Palace was like the sun in the sky. It was the leader of all the factions in the four seas. The old Dragon King's prestige was extremely high. With a single order, countless sects in the four seas would listen to him. But in that battle, the Divine Dragon Palace still lost. The old Dragon King died in battle, and the four shallow seas no longer had an alliance leader. After that battle, the Black Dragon Triad became a god. From a force in the outer seas, it became the overlord of the four seas, controlling all the trade routes in the sea. On the way to the deck, Bai Lishi gave Xiaochen a simple explanation of the Black Dragon group, causing Xiaochen to feel astonished. Who would have thought that in the Boundless Sea, far away from the mainland, there would be such a colossus as the Black Dragon Triad? Before this, there had never been any news of it on the mainland. Sun Guangquan said, "But now, the Divine Dragon Palace's strength has increased greatly. The Black Dragon Group's edge in the Eastern Shallow Sea is no longer as great as before. So don't think too much about it. Let's go to the deck and see what kind of tricks they're playing." Hundreds of cultivators stood on the wide deck. Their cultivations were not low, they were at least superior grade martial kings. When Xiaochen looked around, he discovered 2 or 3 half-step martial monarchs. 6 huge black warships stood on the surface of the sea in front of the merchant ship. The ancient demonic energy cannons on the warships were open and flickered with a cold light. The ancient demonic energy cannons were very mighty. When filled with inferior-grade spirit stones, they could severely injure a martial saint in one shot. When filled with medial-grade spirit stones, they could easily injure an inferior-grade martial king. If filled with superior-grade spirit stones, even a martial monarch would be on tenterhooks and would not dare to clash head-on. With the deterrence of several dozen ancient demonic energy cannons, the many cultivators on the deck all showed cautious expressions. They did not dare to be too impudent. Dong! 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 Just at this moment, footsteps came from the ship's hold. Another cultivator came out. Xiaochen turned his head and saw that this person had an exquisite figure and voluptuous curves. She wore black leather armor and carried 2 short swords on her back. She wore a half-mask that covered her face. Her black eyes were very deep and mysterious. Unexpectedly, Shifeng was on the ship as well. Xiaochen was very curious about this person. He had always wanted to know why she knew Qingyun Peak's 9 secret techniques. However, when Xiaochen saw the unapproachable aura of Shifeng, he gave up on the thought of greeting her. Xiao. After everyone arrived, 5 cultivators wearing black battle armor flew over from the warship. Their auras were incredibly dense. The person leading them was very strong, a half-step martial monarch. That person had a straight face, short hair, and spirited eyes. He looked very capable. He smiled faintly at the crowd and said, "Let me introduce myself. I am an insignificant captain of the Black Dragon Group's 9th Legion. My name is Jian Chainan." One of the half-step martial monarchs said somewhat impatiently, "Just speak directly. Why are you stopping us? Cut the crap." Even though Jian Chainan was interrupted in front of everyone, he did not get angry. He continued, "There is no rush. It is nothing major. Aren't you going to the 3rd grade battlefield for experiential training? You can participate through my Black Dragon Group as well. Furthermore, the reward is double that of the Divine Dragon Palace." The moment Jian Chainan said this, a commotion broke out. Double the reward, this temptation was not small. However, some of the people who had been to the deep-sea battlefield smiled coldly to themselves. Their expressions did not change. Bai Lishi said softly, "Don't listen to him. The Divine Dragon Palace controls the main junctions of the 3rd grade battlefield. The Black Dragon Group only controls a small corner. Furthermore, it is not the main area of activity for the demons. No matter how high the reward is, it is useless." Jian Chainan continued, "As long as you agree to come with us, we will give you 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones when you board the warship. When you return, we will give you another 100,000. If you kill more demons, the reward will increase." A commotion broke out in the crowd. Some of the cultivators who came to the boundless sea for the first time were tempted. 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones was not a small sum. After the mission ended, they would be able to obtain at least 100,000 medial-grade spirit stones. If they did not die, it would be a large sum. "I am willing to go." Immediately, someone who came to the boundless sea for the first time thought about it. He felt that it was profitable and agreed to the other party's request. Jian Chainan immediately tossed out a few boxes of spirit stones and handed them to that person. He smiled and said, "You made the right choice. Get on the warship." That person gently counted the spirit stones and revealed a happy smile. Then, he leaped up and landed on the warship in front. "I am willing as well. I am willing as well." Seeing that someone actually obtained the spirit stones, the number of people who agreed increased. Soon, most of the people on the warship left. Only 10 odd people who knew the inside story did not waver. These people were all peak martial kings. A few were like Sun Guangquan, some were even half-step martial monarchs. 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones did not interest them. What they sought was a true experiential training, where they could disregard life and death. However, in the face of the limits of their lives, they needed to continuously stimulate their potential and advance their cultivation. The Black Dragon Group would not be able to satisfy them. After the group of people who came to the boundless sea boarded the Black Dragon Group's warship, Jian Chainan looked at the crowd and smiled, "Many thanks to everyone for not giving me any trouble. You are all true elites. You are all very clear on the situation of the deep sea battlefield. Your treatment is even better than that group of people earlier." Bai Lishi mocked, "What do you mean? You make it sound like we agreed to go with you. I don't think we said we would go with you." However, Sun Guangquan sent a voice projection to Xiao Chen, "Prepare to abandon the warship and head west. That is the area controlled by the Divine Dragon Palace. Do not sink to the bottom of the sea. The sea monsters there are very difficult to deal with." Xiao Chen's heart sank. It looked like this experiential training involved the internal strife of two peak powers. It would not end peacefully. The other half-step martial monarch said, "In this boundless sea, your Black Dragon Group is not the only one who can do whatever you want. Now that we are in the Divine Dragon Palace's territory, there is nothing you can do to us." Jian Chainan's face sank. He smiled coldly and said, "Do you think you can get there? I will say this, whether you want to or not, you will still have to go. Let's go." The remaining 10 odd people on the deck were all astute and decisive people. When they saw that the situation had reached a point of no return, they did not hesitate to abandon the warship and leave quickly. Xiao Chen immediately jumped off the warship and headed west. His figure flickered, and in a few breaths, he had traveled a kilometer. Jian Chenan's expression remained calm, he was not too surprised. When he returned to the warship, he waved his hand and said, "Blast them all. Leave no one alive." Boom! The ancient demonic energy cannons on the warship, which had already been filled with spirit stones, immediately lit up. Horrifying spiritual energy poured out and shot resplendent beams of light at the scattered cultivators. Xiao Chen had his spiritual sense spread out. He instantly felt 10 beams of light heading for him. If they all struck him, even if he did not die, he would be skinned alive. A bolt of lightning flashed. Xiao Chen executed lightning evasion and instantly moved 100 meters to dodge. Miserable cries resounded. In an instant, 4 or 5 peak superior grade martial kings fell from the warship. Boom! 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 The 6 warships did not give the cultivators any time to hesitate. They soared into the air and fired their cannons again. The remaining people used cloning techniques to dodge the might of the ancient demonic energy cannons. Some directly attacked, weakening the might of the ancient demonic energy cannons. Others used ingenious movement techniques to nimbly dodge. However, the 6 warships were not in a hurry. They chased after the cultivators like venomous snakes, trying to kill them all. As the cultivators dodged the attacks of the ancient demonic energy cannons, they inevitably slowed down. The distance between the warships and the cultivators shrank. Sun Guangquan said to Xiao Chen, "Split up. Old Bai and I have our own ways to protect ourselves. We will think of a way to regroup when the time comes." Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. This was the only way for now. If they stayed together, they would be too big of a target. Chi! Chi! The 6 warships had a total of 60 ancient demonic energy cannons. The resplendent beams of light in the air did not stop for even a moment. Xiao Chen pushed the blue dragon cloud soaring art to its limits. He used it continuously in the air. Be it the warships flying or firing the ancient demonic energy cannons, they all exhausted a large number of spirit stones. The cultivators would definitely not chase after them endlessly. As long as they persevered to the end, they would be able to shake off their pursuers. However, this was easier said than done. Of the 10-odd cultivators, only 7 or 8 remained bitterly holding on. At this moment, the gap between the cultivators and half-step martial monarchs became clear. Chapter 499. The 3 half-step martial monarchs were at the very front. As long as they held on for a while longer, they would be able to escape the range of the cannons. What made Xiao Chen flabbergasted was Bai Lishi. This fellow relied on his strong physical body and the 5 or 6 defensive secret treasures he had. Bai Lishi completely ignored the bombardment of the cannons and endured a few attacks. Unexpectedly, he managed to walk in front of everyone. Xiao Chen's chest tightened. If these people walked out, the remaining cannons would focus on them. The situation would become even more dire. I cannot drag this out. I have to use all my trump cards. Otherwise, I will not even have a chance to use them. After Xiao Chen made up his mind, he no longer hesitated. The silver warship came out from his right eye, and Xiao Chen quickly hid in the hold of the silver warship. Bang! Bang! In an instant, a few beams of light struck the body of the silver warship, causing it to tumble uncontrollably in the air. Xiao Chen quickly lowered his feet and stabilized the direction of the warship. Then, he quickly flew to the west. With the warship as a buffer, Xiao Chen did not have to worry too much. He no longer had to dodge, and his speed increased significantly. However, the warship did not have any defensive formations. Soon, cracks appeared on it. Xiao Chen ignored the cracks on the warship and charged forward with all his might. The blood flame shoes on Xiao Chen's feet glowed, he could use the secret technique at any time. Bang! Finally, the silver warship could no longer hold on. It shattered into countless motes of light and returned to Xiao Chen's right eye. Xiao Chen did not panic. The instant the warship shattered, he activated the secret technique of the blood flame shoes. His speed immediately reached Mach 4. Xiao Chen turned into a beam of purple light and moved far away in the blink of an eye, leaving the beams of light behind him. He was still 500 meters away from the range of the ancient demonic energy cannons. However, he had attracted too much attention. Furthermore, the half-step martial monarchs had already fled. The next wave of attacks would be even more ferocious than before. "I'm going all out." Xiao Chen's expression turned serious. He placed his right hand on the hilt of his saber and closed his eyes. With the sweep of his divine sense, he saw the light beams coming from all directions. Xiao Chen's mind, energy, and spirit gathered into a line. The state of thunder and saber intent brewed silently. "Break!" Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes and shouted. The lunar shadow saber turned into a bolt of lightning as he drew it. It was like Xiao Chen had eyes on the back of his head. He sent out 12 saber chi containing boundless saber intent and the state of thunder, clashing with the resplendent pillar of light. Bang, bang, bang. Intense explosions rang out continuously in the void. As the shockwaves surged, even space itself began to ripple. For the 12 strands of saber chi, Xiao Chen exhausted 3/4 of his essence. This was the strongest he could burst out within one breath. After Xiao Chen swung his saber 12 times, he felt like he was about to collapse. Sweat appeared on his forehead. However, he managed to block the 9 peerless beams of light. On the deck, Jian Chainan watched the white figure break the 9 ancient demonic energy cannons. He had an astonished expression on his face. This was the first time Jian Chainan saw a youth erupt with such strength in such a short time. Even some of the older generation cultivators would find it hard to do so. No matter how dense one's essence was, if one's explosive power was not strong, it would be hard to say who would win in a real fight. When Jian Chainan saw that Xiao Chen had already escaped the range of the ancient demonic energy cannons, he asked the cultivators from the Tianwu continent, "Who is this person? Do you know him? He seems to be the great Qin nation's white-robed bladesman." "However, it is not him." "It is hard to be sure," someone whispered. The white-robed bladesman, Jian Chainan frowned. He shook his head and said, "I hope he is just an ordinary genius. Otherwise, if we let him go, we will be in big trouble." Surging seawater stretched as far as the eye could see. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the surface of the water, following the waves as they surged forward. He held 4 medial-grade spirit stones in his hand as he quickly recovered his essence. He had exhausted too much of his essence. If he did not replenish it quickly, he might end up in the stomachs of the fish in this seemingly peaceful boundless sea. After 1 hour, the 4 medial-grade spirit stones were completely exhausted. Xiao Chen's essence barely recovered by half. However, this was enough to protect himself. Xiao Chen casually tossed aside the spirit stones and looked into the sea. The deep seawater could not obstruct his vision. At a depth of more than 100 meters, Xiao Chen saw a strange black fish. It was about the size of a palm and covered in sharp scales. There were so many of them that it was flabbergasting. With a rough count, there were at least 1,000 of them. No wonder Sun Guangquan had instructed him not to sink to the bottom of the sea no matter what. If he did that, he would be able to avoid the attacks of the ancient demonic energy cannons. However, if he were to face the attacks of thousands of these strange fish, he would die even faster. Xiao Chen stood up and looked around. The earlier rush had already separated him from Bai Lixi and Sun Guangquan. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and discovered something that was somewhat difficult to deal with. Above the vast sea, the scenery was exactly the same everywhere. No matter which direction he looked from, it was all the same, endless seawater. The sky was dark again. He could not see the sun or anything to use as a point of reference. He had no way of determining his direction. Xiaochen revealed a helpless smile. He had already survived through wind and rain. Unexpectedly, he was stumped by such a small problem. Since he did not know the direction, he should not move around randomly. Otherwise, he might end up getting more and more wrong. He should be able to determine his direction by looking at the stars at night. However, it was only a matter of a few hours. There was no need to panic. He would wait for a while. Since there was nothing to do, there was no need to waste time. Xiaochen drew his lunar shadow saber and quietly practiced the four-season saber technique on the surface of the sea. The four-season saber technique had only 5 moves: spring, summer, autumn, winter, and cycle of seasons. However, each move was ever-changing. There was nothing special about it, it depended on one's control. Xiaochen infused the various scenes of spring, summer, autumn, and winter into his saber techniques, forming his own unique mysterious phenomenon. For example, Bai Shuehe comprehended the scene of spring's water turning from warm to cold. The corresponding scene was water. However, the scene that Xiaochen comprehended in spring was thunder. The first thunder of spring, the cries of 10,000 beasts. In Xiaochen's original world, the people called the first thunder of spring thunder. During the long, cold winter, all the beasts of the world would enter hibernation. This spring thunder was the bell that woke them up. As the thunder roared, the lifeless winter was silent for a long time. The cries of hundreds of beasts announced the arrival of spring. This was the state of Xiaochen's saber technique. It took the meaning of spring thunder and commanded all the beasts in the world to cry. Winter passed and spring came. The cycle of heaven and earth was unstoppable. As for summer, autumn, and winter, Xiaochen was still pondering them. He did not have a clear idea. Sun Guangquan had also given him a lot of advice, broadening his thinking and making him more cautious. On the calm surface of the water, Xiaochen continuously perfected this move. However, every time he was about to explode, he would stop. This was because Xiaochen felt that something was missing. If he just exploded out like this, he would not be able to achieve the effect he wanted. Just like that, Xiaochen tirelessly practiced on the surface of the sea. As he swung his saber, he would always stop at the last moment and start again from the beginning. This repeated countless times. Without realizing it, Xiaochen completely immersed himself in the saber technique. Xiaochen forgot where he was and his purpose in coming here. He even forgot who he was. There was only this saber in his mind. Xiaochen did not know that a pretty black figure was watching with interest from a kilometer behind him for a long time. However, after a while, that woman watched as Xiaochen's exquisite saber technique always got stuck at the last moment and had to start over again, repeating this process over and over again. She felt extremely depressed. Such an exquisite saber technique had attracted her attention at first glance. She wanted to see how earth-shattering it would be at the final moment when it erupted. However, this guy in front of him was extremely brainless. Every time when the audience was most excited, he would get stuck and start all over again. This happened over and over again. Finally, that person could no longer hold back her anger. Speaking of which, can't you just erupt a little? Every time you get stuck at the most crucial moment, it makes me very unhappy. Do you know that? The sudden voice startled Xiaochen out of his trance-like state. He sheathed his saber and turned his head to look. He discovered that Shifeng had arrived behind him at some point in time. Xiaochen smiled bitterly and said, "I want to erupt as well. However, I still lack inspiration. If I force it, there will be a huge flaw in this move." The four-season saber technique was very different from regular martial techniques. It focused on the intent, the form was secondary. If one forced it out, the intent would not be complete. The might of the saber technique would be greatly reduced. Once it was fixed, it would be very difficult to change. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter were all linked together. If the first link was not grasped well, it would severely affect the next 3 links. Hence, this first spring thunder, 10,000 beasts' cry together had to be completed in one breath, allowing it to reach its most perfect moment before erupting. The masked Shifeng said, "In that case, you are really extraordinarily bored. Since you know that the inspiration has not arrived, why are you still standing here like a fool? Why are you not rushing to meet up with the Divine Dragon Palace's people?" Xiaochen shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm lost and cannot find my way. I can only wait until it is dark before making my move. In any case, I have nothing better to do." Shifeng shook her head and said, "I really don't know what you are thinking. To think that you did not even make such preparations before coming to the boundless sea. The waves are very strong at night. Come with me, I have a tracking tool." This was somewhat surprising. He had not expected Shifeng to be so easy to talk to. Xiaochen thanked her. Xiaochen followed behind her, heading west on the calm sea. Along the way, Xiaochen took some time to ask, "I have been very curious. Who taught you the 9 secrets of Qingyun Peak?" "Those are the secrets of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Qingyun Peak." When Shifeng heard this, she paused for a moment. Then, she said, "My adoptive father taught me." However, he did not say that they were the 9 secrets of Qingyun Peak. This is the first time I heard you mention them. Xiaochen thought of a possibility that he had guessed before. He continued asking, "Is your adoptive father called Ling Tianhe?" Shifeng stopped and turned her head back. Her eyes filled with doubt as she asked, "How did you know?" Indeed, Xiaochen guessed right. Aside from the Pavilion Master's faction, no one from the other peaks could learn the 9 secrets of Qingyun Peak. Chapter 500. Furthermore, most people would have to swear to their heart demons not to spread the secret technique. Only people of Ling Tianyu's level did not need to follow such rules. Xiaochen asked somewhat excitedly, "Where is your adoptive father now?" He could finally hand over the divine weapon. No matter what, that thing was a hidden danger. Once it was exposed, even if he had 9 lives, it would not be enough. Shifeng's gaze turned wary. She asked, "What are you trying to do?" I'm fine. I was just asking. Can you tell me? I want to seek advice from him. After all, I am from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiaochen wanted to tell the truth. However, when he thought about it, the divine weapon was too important. He could not reveal it so easily. So, he could only make up an excuse. Shifeng said coldly, "You are hemming and hawing. With one look, I know you are lying. It would be strange if I told you." Xiaochen smiled and did not deny it. This matter could not be rushed. He finally had some clues. All he had to do was grab hold of Shifeng. He would eventually find Ling Tianyu. The two of them continued forward. Xiaochen was very interested in the girl wearing the mask. Along the way, he tried to find something to talk about. He discovered that Shifeng was different from what he imagined. She was not as cold as she looked. Although she was wary of Xiaochen, she was not too guarded against him. Speaking of which, why are you wearing a mask? Why would you not dare to show your true face? Xiaochen asked another question that interested him. Shifeng said indifferently, "My adoptive father made me wear it. He said that when I fight, I cannot control my expression. It is easy for my opponent to see through me." Xiaochen felt it was strange. He said, "In that case, if you cannot control your expression for the rest of your life, won't you have to wear this mask forever?" Shifeng said coldly, "Are you cursing me?" Xiaochen smiled and said, "How can that be? I was just saying it casually. Don't overthink it. I hope that you can take off your mask now. That way, I can see your true face." When Shifeng heard this, she said, "I will. The first purpose of this experiential training is to take off my mask. What's the second purpose?" "One more step and then I'll defeat you. I've never lost to someone of the same generation." You'd better not die on the battlefield. Shao Chen was speechless. Speaking of which, you're helping me lead the way now. Could it be that you're also afraid that something might happen to me? When the time comes, your strength will increase greatly, but you won't be able to find a whetstone, right? Shi Feng nodded and smiled. You are absolutely right. However, the whetstone has to be changed to a whetstone. I train with the sword, not with the saber. Shao Chen immediately felt depressed. No wonder Shi Feng was so kind. It turned out that she had such a motive. In that case, I will still curse you to never be able to take off this mask for the rest of your life. Xiao. Shi Feng unsheathed both her swords, and two sharp sword qi flew towards Shao Chen at lightning speed. Shao Chen was startled and quickly dodged to the side. Two strands of sword qi slid past him and created two long waves on the water surface. Then, you have no sense of direction. Go ahead by yourself. I won't be accompanying you. Shi Feng sheathed her swords and no longer bothered with Shao Chen. Her figure flashed, and in a few breaths, she disappeared into the vast sea. You really don't understand a woman's heart. She changes on a whim. Shao Chen felt extremely depressed as he watched Shi Feng disappear from his vision. I'll just wait. After all, it will be dark soon. I'll just head west. Gurgle. Gurgle. Just at this moment, a large number of bubbles appeared on the water surface in front of Shao Chen. After taking 10 steps back, Shao Chen's expression changed. He placed his right hand on his saber hilt and cautiously sized up the situation in front of him. Chi! A huge azure dragon head emerged from the water. The dragon head was made of metal and did not get wet. With a ka-cie sound, the dragon opened its mouth. Two middle-aged men in purple robes jumped out of the dragon's mouth. Their purple robes were embroidered with gold, and a blue dragon was drawn on their backs. Are you here to participate in the third-grade trial of the battlefield? You just need to answer yes or no, the person on the right said quickly. The person on the right spoke very quickly. When he saw Shao Chen nod, he said, all right, come up, then. We are from the Divine Dragon Palace. Shao Chen was not in a rush. Instead, he asked, what proof do you have? When the person on the right heard this, he could not help but frown. He said impatiently, you are just a medial grade martial king. Why are you speaking so much nonsense? I told you to come in, so just come in. The person who spoke first did not waste any time. He took out a medallion and said, this is the medallion of the Divine Dragon Palace's outer sect elder. It is the real deal. Hurry up. This is still the outer sea, it is under the control of the Black Dragon Group. We cannot stay here for too long. After Shao Chen saw clearly, he no longer hesitated. He followed the two into the dragon's mouth. The dragon's mouth closed and quickly sank to the bottom of the sea. Then, it swam forward. As the two walked into the dragon's body, Shao Chen discovered that it was a small underground palace. There were night illumination stones overhead, so it was not dark. When they arrived at the main hall, there were already 10-odd people there. Shao Chen took a look. They were all cultivators going to the third-grade trial of the battlefield, just like him. However, he did not see Bai Lishi or Sun Guangquan. The atmosphere of the place was rather heavy. Shao Chen found a corner and closed his eyes to rest. After the two Divine Dragon Palace outer sect elders brought Shao Chen to this place, they did not linger. They rushed forward anxiously. I heard that 70% of the cultivators who came to participate in the third-grade trial were intercepted by the Black Dragon Group. Of the remaining 30%, 10% were killed. Only 20% managed to escape. With only 20% of the cultivators participating in the third-grade trial, this battlefield will be much more difficult than usual. There will be a slim chance of survival. It looks like the Black Dragon Group is going to make a big move this time. Recently, the Divine Dragon Palace has been rising very quickly. With only 20% of the cultivators, it will be difficult for them to eliminate the demons in the third-grade battlefield. We came at a bad time. Unexpectedly, we ran into the internal conflict between the Black Dragon Group and the Divine Dragon Palace. I wonder if this is a blessing or a disaster for us. Hee hee. Whether it is a blessing or a disaster, it depends on how you look at it. An intense battlefield is more in line with the true meaning of a trial. If it is like playing house, what is the point? The instant the blue dragon swam around, some people in the hall sighed, some became excited, and some remained calm. Everyone was different. Xiaochen felt that this blue dragon warship floated up and down 3 or 4 times, picking up another 5 or 6 people. After that, it swam around for a long time before it finally broke through the water and soared into the sky, piercing through the clouds. After flying for an entire night, Xiaochen leisurely landed on a small island. We have arrived. Come on down. 2 Divine Dragon Palace Outer Sect elders, who had led Xiaochen in, said indifferently to the crowd when they entered the hall. Xiaochen opened his eyes and followed the crowd. Then, he leaped out of the dragon's mouth. Xiaochen looked around and discovered that he was in a huge drill ground. There were hundreds of blue dragon warships in the drill ground. Cultivators continuously leaped out of the dragon's mouth. There were many of them. When all of them gathered, there were more than 2,000 people. Xiaochen felt astonished. Only 20% of them are here, and there are already more than 2,000 people. If all of them are here, there will be more than 10,000 people. The 2,000-odd people here were all elites who had escaped the Black Dragon Group's pursuit. They were all elites. The weakest of these cultivators was a peak superior grade martial king. A third of them were even half-step martial monarchs. Xiaochen did not stop looking. He continued looking and finally discovered Bai Lishi and Sun Guangquan. He quickly parted the crowd and walked over. Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "I knew that nothing would happen to you. Indeed, it is as I expected, you are not injured at all." Xiaochen nodded slightly and said, "I heard some things on the ship. It seems like only 20% of the people are participating in the deep-sea battlefield." Bai Lishi nodded and said, "I do not know what the Black Dragon Group is up to this time. However, that is a matter between them and the Divine Dragon Palace. It has nothing to do with us. To us, this might not be a bad thing." Sun Guangquan continued, "The third-grade battlefield is actually not as horrifying as you imagine. The combined strength of the demons does not surpass that of a martial monarch. With fewer people, it only means that we have more missions than usual." Xiaochen asked, "What exactly do we do in the battlefield?" Bai Lishi replied, "It is very simple. We just have to kill demons in the battlefield. Every demon we kill will give us some points. We can exchange the points for medial-grade spirit stones or superior-grade spirit stones at the Divine Dragon Palace." Xiaochen exclaimed in shock, "We can even exchange superior-grade spirit stones?" Bai Lishi smiled and said, "Of course. The spirit veins in the deep sea are much more abundant than those on land. Otherwise, why do you think there are so many people rushing to the battlefield? To put it nicely, it is experiential training for cultivators. Actually, every deep-sea battlefield is a hidden danger to the Divine Dragon Palace. Once there are too many demons and they run out of resources, they will naturally go to the nearby islands to plunder. So, you understand what I mean, right?" Xiaochen nodded to indicate that he understood. Simply put, the experiential training of the deep-sea battlefield was because the Divine Dragon Palace did not have enough manpower and had to spend spirit stones to hire people to help. Cultivators could participate in experiential training and increase their combat experience. At the same time, they could obtain spirit stones. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. No wonder so many people came. "Elder Feng, everyone is here." This disciple went to take a head count. There are only 2,300 people. The rest have been taken away by the Black Dragon Group. A middle-aged man in purple dragon robes reported respectfully to an old man on the high platform of the drill ground. This old man's name was Feng Buyu. He was a martial monarch and was one of the Divine Dragon Palace's inner sect elders. He was also the person in charge of this third-grade battlefield. Feng Buyu muttered, "Don't bother with the Black Dragon Group's matters. The higher-ups will naturally send someone to discuss countermeasures. 2,000 elites should be barely enough. Gather them up and set off." "We obey." The purple-robed man received the order and left. He immediately passed down instructions, and the outer sect elders immediately got to work. They gathered Xiao Chen and the others. Ka Xie. Ka Xie. The Azure Dragon battleships that were lined up vertically on the battlefield were divided in the middle and then inlaid together. Soon, to Xiao Chen's astonishment, they formed a huge, rectangular platform. Hundreds of dragon heads lined the sides of the platform. Bai Lishi patted Xiao Chen's shoulder and said, "Don't be so shocked. It is just the Divine Dragon Palace's Divine Dragon warships. When you reach the battlefield, you will be able to see bigger ones. Go on. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.